YouTube and Facebook pages at the OneMic Show, and then follow us on Instagram at OneMic Show. We are also taking live calls tonight at 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak, so please save that number. I'm going to repeat it again. It's 202-683-4570 and press star 5 to speak. Save that phone number. Now, later tonight, our guest, Brad Bro, will tell us why he feels some African countries have a superior education system compared to the US, and also why he feels that the standards of living in Africa are far better than the US and Europe overall. Feel free to start typing in the comment section below to tell us what you want to know from Brad. Na bila kusahau, tapokea mziki toka DJ wetu machachari mleta habari DJ Omoshfire na kudunda kule viwanjani na Mika Och jezi nambari 7 mgongoni akituletea habari za michezo. Moja kwa moja toka Kilimanjaro Studios ni mimi mtangazaji na mwanahabari wako mpendwa Ali Badawi. Kwetu wananiita mteule na wengine mniite mjukuu wa Masai, because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui na sibagui. Karibuni.
Now, let's talk politics.
Now, of course, there's not going to be any politics this hour. We'll be talking to the president of the Rohrs Team, Mr. Brad Bro, on why he's making a big bet on the African continent. He'll also be telling us why Americans should seriously consider the African continent as a plan B for both investing, settling, and retiring. Now, please start typing below and tell us where you're tuned in from and what you want to know from Brad, and we'll be reading your comments live on air tonight. And I'm your co-host and producer, Ali Badawi. It's Friday the 27th of October, and we are streaming live from Kilimanjaro Studios outside Washington, D.C. Now, please remember to subscribe to our OneMic Show YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. On panel with me tonight is Mr. OneMic Kamakawa. Sports anchor Mika Och will be joining us via Zoom. Our resident DJ Moshfire is already live on the decks. And also not forgetting our super producer, Mubelwa Bandio. And I want to welcome, all the listeners who are already tuned in. I can see Kaiser Soze, Afro-Jamaican, is already tuned in. And he's saying he just posted this on his Facebook and in the Ken Ganda community. Please share all these links so that you can get everyone tuning in and letting us know, how they feel about the conversation we're having today. I can see Junoburu tuned in all the way from North Carolina. June says, I'm looking forward to his logic behind what OneMic said. So we'll find out what that is. And then I can see Sambaza Podcast is also in the building. He's saying he's glad to be back after a while. And I can see also
alikuwa DC hakusema chochote.
Yes, hakusema kichochote. I can see Sleodwar.
Guys, please let's control ourselves.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I can see Sleodwar anasema patia Ali Ndimu, yes, my voice is having some issues, but the show must go on. At least I can speak today, not like the last time. Remember, guys, last year?
No, please. Ali, please do not remind us, because some of us had to go to CBS and get some shots.
Okay. All right. So we're going to get started, and we're going to make do, with my voice. There's someone who told me, when you're sick, you sound much better. I don't know what exactly that meant.
Where was this person and what type of?
I think they meant that you're quieter.
No, I can't reveal the context of the conversation.
I think he was probably more immobile.
I can't reveal the context of the conversation, but I want to welcome Mika. Mika is already live. Mika, how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing, Ali?
You sound so far, boss.
Are you far from the microphone, or the microphone is far from you?
Or are you sick, like Ali?
Or ask OneMic to increase the volume.
The volume stops.
The volume has gone to the top of the hour, and you need to increase on your side.
Okay, all right. As we make that adjustment, we're going to get started because we have a lot to cover tonight, I promise you. Now, I'm sure, we for a while had talk about Africa being the next frontier for growth. Now, Western news media, on the contrary, has always painted a picture of doom and gloom on the continent. And on the show tonight, to make a claim against this is Brad Bro. Brad Bro is the president of the Rohrs Team. Now, the Rohrs Team is a global real estate company that provides logistical support to diasporans seeking to invest in residential developments in West Africa and also settle and retire there. Now, Brad has spent a good part of the last few years since the pandemic in Ghana and a few other West African countries, which he's going to talk about. He has also been attending key investing in Africa events out here in DC, New York, and in different parts of the world. He will also be sharing with us about this and more. Brad also has some thought-provoking content on his Instagram account. Yeah, you should follow him at Rohrs Team. I'm going to spell that. It's ROHRS.
Not Rohrs.
No, it's ROHRS. TEAM. So make sure you follow him on Instagram, and he's also going to give us his handles to all other social media pages that he has.
His name is a challenge for my mountain people.
Exactly.
So carry on.
How do you say arara?
We're gonna find out shortly.
Lol.
We're gonna find out shortly how that name is pronounced. But on Instagram is where we first, took notice of him. He'll also tell us why he feels Africa has far superior education systems compared to the US, and also why he says Africa has better standards of living over both Europe and the US. Very bold comments. Brad, welcome to the OneMic Show.
Hey, it's absolutely great to be here, and I look forward to having this conversation.
Okay, and how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. We had a long week, but I'm here now with you guys. I'm looking forward to the next couple hours.
Okay, and we're having an interesting conversation before we started. You're saying this is the first time that you are on a live broadcast. You've done a lot of interviews, but never live.
We've done live interviews. We've done conferences, but we've never actually sat in a great studio like this with a bunch of guys to discuss these issues live. So this is really exciting for me, and hey, I'm happy my first time's with you.
Okay, all right, and then this will be a very great and interesting interview. But before we get started on the conversation today, we have some of our listeners who may be hearing about you for the first time. So in a brief minute or two, please give us a brief background about yourself, Brad.
Yeah, my name is Brad Rohrs. We originally started as a real estate development firm here in the Washington, Baltimore, D.C. area. Life takes you on weird paths, and we had an opportunity about 5 years ago to branch out and do initially analysis for West African companies, particularly those who were looking for grants and bank loans. But one opportunity leads to another, and we became partners with a development in Ghana, which is going incredibly well, just outside of Accra and up in the mountains of Aburi, and really exciting smart home communities. I wish I could build homes as good as what we're building in Ghana here for the Americans, but unfortunately they just don't let us. So
now talk about that.
Absolutely,
yeah, because and this is even besides conversations we're having. But talk about that. You have said before, on one of your many videos, that the quality of houses in Africa is way higher than the quality of houses that are built here in the US. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, particularly for the new construction that's going up across West Africa. What you're finding in the mid to higher level developments is quality that can't be replicated in the Western world, and it comes down to where the money is going. When we're developing properties, which we've done in America, we're happy to do that, but your money that you're paying us for this new home construction, almost 60 or 70% of that is going into purchasing the land, getting the developmental rights, putting the infrastructure down. Whereas in West Africa, particularly in Ghana, if you're buying a $200,000 house, at least $160,000 of that is going into the quality of the materials. We also are building with concrete. We're not building with cheap plywood.
Wow.
In thousands of years, there's going to be no archaeologists looking at Western houses. They're all going to go into dust. But I have a feeling that just like the old construction in Europe, what we're building right now in West Africa is going to be around that long of a time. It's just going to be around forever because we're building out of the strongest materials that we could possibly build out of. Because these properties are being built to be handed down. You have to understand the buyers that we have. They're not just buying for themselves. These are family homes that they're anticipating are going to go to their kids, their kids' kids, their children, all the way down the line. And so they won't tolerate anything but the best quality.
Wow, DJ Moshfire, want to get you in on this conversation and tell me, first of all, we're starting on such a high note. What do you think? What are your thoughts about that? Because I think most of the time we've never paused to think about the quality of housing. So like the house that you own here, and maybe the house that you own back in...
My friend, why are we throwing stones?
No. I'm just, I'm just trying to get your thoughts on whether you've ever given that a thought. Quality, something as simple as quality of housing.
Of course, because basically, if you look at the way homes are built here, they're built about, it's basically how cheap and how fast can you build it. It's not necessarily about longevity past the 30 years of your mortgage.
Wow.
So if your home, because your roof doesn't, normally, most roofs don't give you the 30 years. If it goes through like 3 owners in 30 years, one of you is replacing the roof. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Your AC system, if you get 10 years, you're good. If you get 20, that's a bonus.
And you have recent experience with that.
For AC.
Let's not go there with the AC business. In fact, replacing your AC is $6,000 to $10,000 predicament you have to go through. And there's financing, blah blah blah. It all depends on how you move your money around. But still, that's an expensive.
Were you warned? Oh, sorry. Carry on.
I had warning.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, I had warning. So, as a homeowner, there are certain things that you can do. You can get, it depends on who your AC guy is also, right?
Yeah.
But let's go back to the building and quality of the
Big
homes.
shout out to
Yes.
Edu.
Yes. Yes, big shout out to Edu. In terms of the qualities of the homes here, you look at the building material that's used here. We use a lot of, I guess I'd call it, is it processed woods? Is that right way of saying it, right? We have siding. We have even the roofing material you look at that we use. It's, to be honest, the elements are not, I guess I'd say the elements are not kept out of the home unless you insulate it.
All right.
You don't have those issues.
Wow. So
with
we're going
what
to
we build in Africa.
Yes, we're going to get back to that conversation on housing. And Slay here is asking, my main question would be, what has he, or what he transitioned to West Africa, or what your transition to West Africa has been like, and how did you establish yourself there?
Well, I was absolutely lucky because I had a mentor and current partner named Freddie Cole, who took me through the process. Because one of the things I understood very well was I understood the benefits. I saw the quality of the houses, but I wouldn't have known the ins and outs because every country is going to have different real estate. So he really kind of helped me see how the process was and why the properties he was planning to build, which he has built now, would be so much better. And that really helped the transition process. What has been beneficial is having a real estate company for 15 years prior to being involved with West African properties gave us the framework for how we should run things, and it allowed us to assist people from the diaspora because they had certain expectations for how a real estate process should be, and they expected it to be as close to what they had in America as possible. And that wasn't always the case. But we've kind of transitioned our processes to kind of match the needs of the diaspora who want to get that second home, retirement home, or just want to invest in West Africa.
And of all places in the world, because of course you had a real estate company here in the US, and of all places in the world, why did you pick West Africa? Did you just drop, like a pen on a map and it dropped on West Africa? Or what was the reason?
From Jamaica.
People are going to Dubai, people are going to, like other Asian countries, and people are going to Europe. What was it that attracted you particularly about West Africa?
Well, we have a very diverse population here in Washington, D.C., and you end up making friends with everybody. And one of my best friends in the entire world was from Cote d'Ivoire. He brought me initially to Africa. He made a lot of the initial business introductions because originally I was not in West Africa as a developer. I was there as an analyst. I was there running numbers, basically just helping people with their business, getting everything ready so that they could get financing, they could sell their company, things of that nature, analyst work. It was because of that you start to make connections. Those connections lead to connections. I'm sure I could have done well everywhere, but I am so happy that I landed on West Africa, even though it was a little bit of happenstance that got me there. I've been so happy. The people have been amazing. All of Africa I love, but I have a special place in my heart for West Africa.
Okay, that's good. And what exactly does like your company do for people who want to transition in West Africa? Is it just purchasing of properties, or is there other services that you provide to people who want to transition?
No, we do our best. What we say in our company, what Freddie and I would say, is we want to avoid boomerang buyers. We don't want people who go to Africa, stay there for a few months, get really excited, then burn out and come back. One of the easiest things to do, we have houses that are at a great price. You can get a house for $100,000. It's an amazing villa. It's awesome. But we don't want someone just to buy it, take their money, and say goodbye. We have a whole concierge team that's included with anyone who purchases in our community that makes sure that they are set up with healthcare. They're set up, if they have kids, we set them up with the best private schools, best academies. We make sure that they understand all the logistics and they really can enjoy the benefits of being in West Africa. We found that a lot of times if people are if they move to a different area without a little bit of guidance, what they tend to do is they either try to recreate what they knew in America and get frustrated if they can't, or they just kind of stay to themselves. rather than just fully enjoy everything that Africa has to offer. And that's what we're really trying to do. We want to make people as successful as possible, because when you own a real estate company, particularly development, you know that your best salesperson are the people that you sold to. And the happier they are,
Yes.
their friends are starting to refer to
Referrals,
us. Yes,
yeah.
it's giving us lots of referrals. So we are absolutely dedicated, committed, making sure anyone who comes to West Africa that they're successful and that they're happy. And part of that is knowing who not to sell to at times. We have
Wow.
we have very deep conversations with people about what their plans are, what they're expecting, what their hopes are, and we make sure that the purchase of the property kind of fits congruently within what their plans are. Because as much as I love West Africa, it may not be
For everyone.
for every single person in every single situation. Some people, they say, listen, I want to see my grandkids every single weekend.
Yeah.
Realistically, that's not going to happen if you're in West Africa when we start talking about them.
Yeah,
And
correct.
Even though you'll get very excited for the first 6 months, you'll eventually want to see your kids.
You'll burn out.
I say, listen, we'll set you up with the best hotels at that point. But we really do want, and I know Freddie, and that's why I love having him as a partner, is just absolutely passionate, not just about, like, the last thing he cares about is selling the house. His big passion, what he's always talking about in our meetings, is what can we do to make the people who are buying here successful, happy? He always says, how do we make them our sales force? So,
Wow. Okay, that's interesting, and I want to get in Mika and Mike onto the conversation. But before I do that, I have a quick comment here I'm reading, and I also want to welcome people on YouTube. I don't know whether there's any comments that have come in on YouTube so far.
No, we just have our listeners, Afro-Jamaicans in there. Annette, what's up? Mariam Mashaka, Karibu. And that's it. They're listening intently. I'm sure the questions are going to come across hard and fast.
So YouTube people, talk to us. Now, Sambaza Podcast here says, title deeds and leases are some of the issues that affect builders and realtors. In Kenya, currently we are seeing cases of homeowners losing their homes via dubious means. How did you mitigate yourself from issues like leases and deeds or ownership of land and property? Brad.
All right, so that's actually, it's a really excellent question. I don't think it's as big of a problem in our area as it may be in other areas. And it's hard for me to comment outside of a country or even a region that I haven't currently done properties in. However, what we have done is we've made sure that with every tract of land that we purchase, we've done full title work on the immediate area, the area around that. We've done due diligence. And Freddie, for our current property, actually did the title work 2 times with 2 different companies, just to make sure everything was legit. We make sure that all the records are filed appropriately with the government, but we also have the records ourselves. So there's absolutely no question of ownership if you're buying our properties. That we use a combination of satellite imagery and traditional, traditional surveying, just to make sure that all the lines are completely perfect. No one's
with the beacons and all of that.
No one's going to argue over 1 inch. Now, what we found that a lot of people are doing, what they've said is that they wanted to buy one of our properties and then they want to eventually build a larger estate than what we could accommodate, because some of these people want 40 acres. They want the big kind of compound. So a lot of people are buying our properties, using that as their starting base, and then figuring out and doing the research themselves. We've considered offering our services, like some of our title services, to those types of buyers. We haven't rolled that out just yet, but yeah, if you're doing your due diligence, you gotta remember that Ghana has great land records, and particularly with new construction, you're very much safe.
Okay, and another interesting question that I'm seeing here is Slay is asking, would you consider getting into the Kenyan market?
Absolutely. Down the line, you don't ever want to spread yourself too thin. Kenya is a country that I think is very much on the rise. I think it really does rival, if not exceed, West Africa in terms of the potential in the short, mid, and long term. I've kind of established my base there, so I'm going to see this project through, and we may develop out from there. But at this point, I don't see us going into the Kenyan market right now, at least not in the next couple of years, until we get everything taken care of, really, in Ghana.
Okay, all right, good. Mike.
Oh.
Yes, it's a question for you, sir.
Oh, for me?
No.
Welcome. I mean, no. My question was going to be about not land education. But now that you mention land, I know that sometimes we get we have the issue with there's a whole bunch of people trying to, there's this like a repatriation movement that's going on with a lot of, let's say, Hollywood actors, many people, many African Americans finding their roots.
You mean folks who are sick and tired of living in America?
I will say people who are trying to find their roots.
Let's-
I cannot say
Afro-Jamaican, for example.
Afro-Jamaican.
Yeah, he's from Canada, but
yes, he
yeah.
lives, but it's not that they're tired, but it's like they're trying to find their roots, or they're trying to find Mizizi roots. Are you seeing a big clientele from that end, or is it a mixture of just, let's say, Ghanaians or West Africans, or what percentage wise, like if you were to compare the number of people interested in, let's say, real estate and buying houses, are you looking at a big percentage of, let's say, Ghanaians or African Americans or non-Ghanaians? Let me say that.
All right, so generally the people who are purchasing right now, so as far as reconnecting to your roots, I think that's a big part of what starts the conversation. What finishes the conversation and makes someone want to make that transition is when they actually get on the ground for the first time. One of our secret sales tricks is, I just got to get you to Ghana. Like, Ghana will take care of everything itself. Now, as far as the distribution, we've actually had more than I thought of people of African descent who don't have a direct connection to Africa, at least a known direct connection. But the ones who are most likely are people who've had maybe an aunt, or they have a grandparent back there, and they've done a few trips. Because once someone has done those first initial trips,
Correct.
it becomes a lot more real for them, and they know how nice it is. They know how good
you
the
don't have to
food
sell
is.
it, quote unquote.
There's no selling.
sales, yes.
The only sale is, can I get you to Ghana? Then you'll want to buy the best real estate, and I would hope that's what we're putting together. But it's very hard to get someone to want to leave once they've touched down.
Okay, all right, that's great. And then we have another comment here coming from Doreen Florence, who says, stay away from the Kenyan market for now. Utajua hujui. So utajua hujui is a saying in Kenya we have, in that you will be character developed. I don't even know whether character developed is an actual is Kenyan English, or if it's English.
Loosely translated,
Yeah.
it's like you will know you don't know.
You'll know that you don't know, because the real estate market in Kenya can be very tricky. There's a lot of stuff going on there.
It is very tricky.
Yeah.
Because
No, it can be.
it can
Because
be.
for some people, Afro-Jamaican will tell you that, it wasn't as tricky for him. And I think he got the right people to help him,
Yes.
in my opinion.
Yes.
So yes, it can
It
be
can
tricky.
be very
If you do
Yes.
it the right, if you get the right people to help you, it can be very seamless. The only problem in Kenya is that there are outfits that know how to wear the suits and set themselves up in such a way that they look legit. And there's been a lot of scamming that has happened to people, especially Kenyans who live here in the US. So that's been an issue that we've been experiencing.
One of the things that we've done to resolve that concern is when they're building new construction with us, is where is the money held during the construction process?
Okay.
And for us, the money that someone's putting to the side in escrow that is distributed to us during the construction process is held in an American title company.
Oh,
it's
wow.
actually held in an American law firm that's bonded. The funds are only released after an inspection on the property has shown that
by the
we have-
owner or the owner's
by the-
representatives.
So the owner is allowed to either use our inspectors if they want to, which is of no cost. They can use their own inspectors, which we pay half of that.
Okay.
There's 4 different phases after we start. So you have the foundation. When the foundation's done,
Okay.
they come through, they inspect it, they get their first. We get our first draw from that to continue the project. Then when we kind of get everything framed out, it's another draw. Once we
Okay.
have most of the interior in, there's one more draw, and then when we finally have all of the fixtures in, everything's good to go. Then we've delivered the final keys, title. Then we get our final draw from our side. So at no point is person's check at risk. Actually, we're at risk.
So in this process, I haven't heard you talk about financing and or using a bank or whatever? Because I've heard you talking about the escrow, putting the money on hold. So does that mean that one can still go get finance, but not all the money would be released to you guys? It's going to be released in phases, or would it be released totally? And I guess the finance company would hold title or whatever they want to call it.
Yeah, there's a few ways for financing to be done. We will do financing up to 36 months through our company, and that's at no interest whatsoever. So we will do that financing for you. That's really useful for people who are reaching certain benchmarks where their capital gains goes from short-term to long-term capital gains, because a lot of them are withdrawing money from the market to purchase the property.
Oh,
that's why we stretched that out.
Okay.
There are a few Kenyan banks that we are bringing on, or not Kenyan. Ghanaian Bank. It'd be nice if I get Kenyan Bank. Ghanaian Bank.
It's okay. I mean, it's okay. You're already in the market. It seems like all we have to do is get you.
The thought is already there.
All we have to do is get you to Kenya.
You're learning to sell like us. You're learning to sell like us. No, we're going to be rolling out hopefully 5-year mortgages. Again, you're not going to get 30-year fixed rate mortgages like you get in America.
Correct.
Which is actually a good thing, because as soon as there's that type of market, the houses are going to become unaffordable. This is really an opportunity for people from the diaspora right now. I don't think it's going to last forever. I think for the next 10 to 20 years, there's going to be an opportunity to use the exchange rates, to use the fact that the Western world gets a lot of capital that on paper through equities and so forth. There's going to be a chance where a regular person can get a dream house in West Africa. You can get a dream house right now. Mm-hmm. But the second that West Africa is fully developed, once we get the parasitic ties off of the continent as best as we can, and when they start having mortgages, which is probably going to happen, we're going to see prices go up, and it's just not going to be. I think it'll be more affordable for Africans. I think it'll be better for people who live in Africa.
Correct.
But I don't think it's going to be the situation where you could be a regular person in America and then be the rich person in Ghana. This is like a 10 to 20 year opportunity.
So the time is now.
Oh, get in there right now. Even if you don't buy one of our properties, get a good title attorney. At least get your plot of land right now.
Okay.
We are buying property. So I'm buying land in Yamoussoukro. I'm buying my own land in Ghana.
Yamoussoukro, you're talking about Ivory Coast?
Yes.
Okay.
I like to speak French sometimes. I'm terrible at it. I need a place to practice.
Okay, parlez-vous.
Oui, oui. Pepe Le Pew.
Who knew?
I didn't know this was a francophile.
No, moi je parle français.
C'est vrai?
Oui.
Continue, please. Please. No, continue.
Je m'appelle comment tu t'appelles? Coupé, Kubamba.
Let me find out. Français très difficile.
No, in Kenya, the French that we speak
Grey Poupon.
Yeah.
We actually learned French in primary school, like way back in whatever, but that thing went out the door.
Yeah. So you're talking about Yamoussoukro. You have you said you have
We're purchasing. We're actually going to be purchasing a few acres.
Okay.
Right next to the cathedral, and
oh wow!
So it's not too far away. I think it's going to be a really kind of wonderful getaway for us. I love the food out there. I love a cheque. I love I love the culture, and hopefully I'll be able to go to Burkina Faso once they get everything situated. I'm very interested.
With that young new leader, the one that one that you don't want to mention his name on your Instagram videos.
They will flag your videos so quick if you mention that guy's name.
That is so.
Why would they? What?
And that's an interesting thing,
who's gonna flag your video? Wait a minute.
No, Instagram is gonna flag your video.
If you do what?
Instagram
is gonna flag your
the guy's. If you mention that the guy name. from Burkina Faso, Ibrahima Traore. Now I've mentioned him. Maybe they might flag the.
Why would you mention that?
Why would you flag? They've been doing that. They have been doing that. There's this thing called shadow banning. Even with what was happening last week with the conflict in Gaza, there's some stuff that we talked about that was shadow banned. But I'm gonna talk to you guys about that. Yes.
You may attend.
Yes, I'm gonna talk to you guys about that after the show. And then we also have Mika who's tuned in. But talk to us about Burkina Faso. So Mika is connected to us via Zoom. He also has some questions for you, but you're talking about Burkina Faso.
Well, they have a very interesting deal in the works right now. So let's bring Russia into it. Let's just test this shadow ban theory. So
wow. Okay, so I guess when you go for it, you go for it, right?
Yeah, you go for it.
Full throttle.
So Russia has basically agreed in principle that they're going to be building a nuclear reactor in Burkina Faso. It's just going to roll out. They will be the fourth nuclear country in Africa. It's going to be something I think is going to be very powerful for the region because it's not just the nuclear power plant. It's that it creates a base load of energy, and it creates a necessary infrastructure, which is going to create low-cost power that's going to enable the region to basically become much more advanced in manufacturing, much more advanced in construction, and it's going to make expansion economically a lot easier. See, what's nice about nuclear power is that it is very reliable, carbon neutral, and it creates this baseline, so you can draw from it, and then you can use renewables, things like that, when you need to get it a little bit higher. But it's kind of showing like this bond that Russia is making through a lot of Africa, and I think Russia's making a lot of friends right now, and I think that Russia's geopolitical advantages, they're saying like they don't want the West to control Africa the way they've been controlling it because they see the West as a geopolitical enemy now.
And we're going to talk about that.
Am I getting way too ahead of us?
Yes, you're getting ahead.
Okay. We'll get ahead.
You're getting ahead of the teacher, but it's okay. But I want you to real quick, just talk about the nuclear energy. As Mika gets ready, I want you to talk about the nuclear energy because it's interesting that you've mentioned before on your videos that there's this dichotomy of nuclear energy and the risks that it has and what has been sold to Africans by the West as risks, and the renewable energy that the West is looking to provide to Africa. So there's kind of like a rivalry between Western countries, that's the US and Europe, and then Russia and China on this side, who want to offer nuclear options to Africa. Talk about that a little bit.
I think a mix is the right solution for Africa. You don't want to just go. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You need a mix of nuclear and renewable. I think that's the reasonable way to go. But the West really wanted to prevent Africa from, and I mean Africa as a continent, from having access to nuclear power, because I think that a energy independent Africa is also independent of a lot of Western influence. And I believe that with Uganda, we have Egypt, South Africa, and now we have Burkina Faso. I know that there's been talks with over a third of the countries. It's just a matter of whether or not the deals kind of get finalized. But yeah, when the nuclear power comes out, it's creating competition for the West in terms of renewable energies. And one of the things that the West, what I've always thought was funny, is that the West gets most of its power, it's like nuclear power, from places like Mali, where they are, a lot of people in Mali don't have energy, but they produce all the energy for France.
Yes, and Niger.
Yes. Yes, Niger and Mali. Yes.
Yes. So that's quite interesting. Yeah. So we wanna move on, but before we move on, I wanna get on to Mika, who has been attentively listening to this conversation. Mika, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Okay. Talk to Brad, Mika. Talk to Brad.
Use your outer
Brad,
voice.
Well.
Good to meet you, Mika.
My question is quite simple. It's how I just want to know how long does it take before when one let's say, okay, come to Ghana, I see everything and decide, okay, I'm doing it. Let's do it right now. So between the finalizing of financing and handing of the keys, how long is that process?
6 months. 6 months is a good time frame. We try to get it done a lot quicker than that. But because when you see construction take a little bit longer in some places in Africa, it's just because of financing. We've got more than enough workers to get things done on time ahead of schedule.
Okay. All right.
Wow.
Good. And then
6 months.
6
Yes.
months.
That's very.
That's very prompt. That's much shorter than I thought. Because I thought this was a long drawn process.
Yeah. Well, normally it takes us. It takes about a year.
Yeah, it takes us about a year.
It takes about a year. It depends on who's doing, but you're right. And I think a lot of it is actually based upon the money that is being used to do the actual build.
A lot of times people are freeing up money to finish off the project.
Yeah.
That creates an illusion of it being slower than it really is. But yes, we can get it done in 6 months.
Okay,
No
all right,
problem.
good. And then we have a comment here from Washek and Irangu, who says, from what I'm gathering, the Ivory Coast and Ghanaian governments have good policies in place to attract foreign investments and assuring investors of the safety, as opposed to 254. 254 is Kenya. That's a Kenyan area code. Yeah. So yeah, but the interesting thing is that there's still a lot of foreign investors who are coming to Kenya. So that means, and I think, like part of what we also want to try to do today is also bridge that gap for Kenyans who are living abroad to understand, like those good opportunities that are there in Kenya. Because Americans are not coming there if there's no good money to be made. The Chinese are not coming there if there's no good money to be made.
Right.
And all of them, the Arabs are there. Everyone is in Kenya. If you travel to Nairobi, we tempt you to come to Nairobi. We can't promise you that you're going to leave, but we tempt you to come to Nairobi. And you'll find it to be a very interesting place. Maybe you might find some similarities to West Africa, but we're also very different in our own ways, as you've already noticed the differences, the diversity within Africa, even within one country.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's very incredible. Yeah, it's very incredible. It's very amazing, and things are different. Now, I want us to move to something different, and I want to talk about the perception that your average American has on the continent of Africa. You've actually pointed an accusing finger at corporate media in the U.S. on how they've shaped perceptions of people, of the average person. Now, please talk to us about that in as far as Africa is concerned.
Yeah, when have you seen the Western media, for instance, talk about luxury living in Lagos or Accra or a city mafia? I mean, when have they talked about the polo leagues or the sailing clubs or the yacht clubs that exist? I can speak for West Africa.
Yeah, we have them in Kenya too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When have they talked about the 5,000 square foot houses that regular people are living in that have marble on the floors? It's all about perception. So the Western media is always going to downplay the success and the wealth of Africa. And they're going to amplify anything that shows poverty, hardship, corruption, disease.
What do they get out of that? What do they get out of by doing that?
Well, I mean, I think that the Africa to much of the Western world is just a place to get raw resources out of. We don't want people going there to develop. We don't want you business guys going back there creating great companies. We want you to just keep them down, keep the economy just good enough so that the mines stay open, but they can't refine their own oil, they can't turn their own cocoa into chocolate, that the coffee they can get for 2 cents on the dollar. They want this system to keep going. And the second that you start saying to guys, hey, wait, it's not that bad in Africa. Oh my God, the food's really good. Oh my gosh, it's actually safe here. Oh my gosh, you could live a luxurious life. The second that people see that, the game is over. Plus, they may start questioning where they're living and why they've accepted such a low standard of living.
Wow, you even mentioned, like safety. Now, this week in America, of course, gun violence.
Terrible.
We had, the massacre in Maine where I think at least 22 people, I don't know how many people it is by now because I've not watched the news today. But you talked about safety because there's always this perception that that Africa is so unsafe, and this is something that you've talked about a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Washington D.C. I love where we're at, and I feel for the most part safe in Washington D.C. But it would probably surprise a lot of people if they found out that the violent crime rate was 15 times higher in Washington D.C. than it is in Ghana.
Wow.
And I think it's actually greater than that. I think we have a lot of underreporting of violence in a lot of cities in America. So you're not really at risk in the same, like, the risky thing to do is basically by the numbers is to come to an American city. Those are the most dangerous places you can be. Africa, for the most part, is going to be completely safe.
This is so interesting because I think this narrative, and most of us have lived here, since after high school.
Yep.
So we become part of that, the part of that narrative, because you will even hear sometimes, Africans who have lived in Africa before saying that
it's not safe. I can't
saying
go
that
back.
It's not safe.
Well, it's something that gets into someone's head. I don't know where. I think the media really does get into a person's consciousness,
correct,
over time. And my challenge to people is come on back and see. Get a plane ticket. It's a direct flight. It's going to take you about 9 to 10 hours. Come here and see for yourself.
The other interesting thing that you talked about is also corruption, because we think, and I'll talk about Africa.
Oh boy, I know where we're going.
Most Africans think of their countries as
corrupt,
very corrupt. You know, like why can't you be them like the Americans? Why can't you be like the Swiss? You know, like that's a perception that we have that you've spoken about. So tell us a little bit about that.
So it comes to with Africa, I think that you have a lot of minor corruption, but is very, very, very visible.
Okay.
And in America, there's major corruption that is mostly kind of whitewashed and invisible. And I could speak from our standpoint as developers, because we develop properties in America, we develop properties in West Africa, and so I have kind of an idea of what kind of goes on behind the scenes. And at no point, like, did I ever have to deal with illegal corruption in America? Does that mean that you don't have to, pay politicians lots of money in the form of donations to get a project through? We pay far more to American politicians. We pay far more to the American government to put a bunch of sticks and bricks on the ground than we ever did in West Africa. I think, I'm not saying what did or did not happen, but maybe some paperwork got expedited, but it was nothing major. I thought of it more as tipping for good service.
But where?
Did I get myself in trouble, guys?
Hey, I guess they don't call it greasing palms.
But Brad, let me ask you, where? I mean, it's so interesting, for lack of a better way of saying this, it's interesting that this is coming from a white American.
Yep.
But where is it that you feel that that this narrative can be reversed, even within the mind of African people? I mean, of course, you're not African, but you've interacted with a lot of us.
Yeah.
And you're looking at things from both perspectives.
Well, I think a lot of so the perception of corruption, it comes from just the visibility of it. I do think that in West Africa, there are a lot of cases in a lot of government institutions where people are asked to make these small payments here or there. This is something that happens, and I think that although that I understand why some officials need that, because they're just trying to pay for their own existence. I think it has created a generally negative perception. I think that eventually we just have to pay our officials enough money that they aren't as tempted by corruption in the smallest form, because these small little things, which to me as a developer, they're like immaterial. I don't even see it as corruption because it doesn't even add up on my bottom line.
We call it facilitation fee in Kenya.
Yes, yeah. But
brown envelopes.
It can create a really bitter taste in someone's mouth.
Correct.
And I think that that's something that we would have to work on. But I'd also point out that when people talk about major corruption in West Africa specifically, and I think it applies for all of Africa, I can speak for West Africa here, it's almost always it involves the West. And that's one of the things I've always found like ironic, is that people are going to say that Africans are corrupt, but it's Western corruption. So why aren't we also saying that the West is corrupt? Right. So
are you talking about cases of where you're saying that there was money that was taken to, like, for example, Swiss banks?
Right.
But they don't talk about the Swiss bank. They talk about the African.
They'll talk all day. They'll talk all the day about this African politician that took money from a project and took it to the Swiss bank. What they don't talk about is how that was made possible. When we've brought money out, because we bring some of our money out of West Africa to pay for our bills over here in America, there are questions that we have to answer every single time.
And there's hurdles all over the place, right?
One time we just wanted to bring $5,000 out. It was $5,000. It's just simply to balance out the books in one place. It was for a minor expense. And we were filling form after form after form. We had to go questions. We had to meet with bank managers. It's going into the Western world. Everything is monitored. So if you see a person bring $5 million out from their country and it just magically appears in a Swiss bank, someone saw that happening and they allowed that to happen.
They looked by the side.
It went through at least 5 different regulatory bodies in order to get there, and every single one said, "Sure, go through." Could
it have just come in a briefcase?
What about
or
this?
Through the dip bag?
To integrate it. Okay, so let's say you bring it in a briefcase.
Yeah, that is true. Yes, it still has to go in somewhere. Somebody has to
deposit it.
Yeah, someone has to. Then
are you bringing $5 million through the Swiss airport? They'll get you in 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. They'll get
unless you're a diplomat.
No, they'll still. I think they still have ways. They still have ways. If it's a big sum of money like $5 million, they will get you. Even here at Dallas Airport, they'll get you very quick. You know, like they won't let you go in. Couple of comments coming in. Esther Mulusa says, nice session. I am learning a lot. Esther, tell us what questions you have for Brad. And then Washeke here says, they're coming to Kenya because the government showers them with incentives and concessions that are not available to Kenyans in the diaspora. And I think she's talking about, you know, like foreign investors.
I think that there's...
Yeah, and
she's right about that.
Okay. All right, and what are your thoughts about that? You know, like should the government maybe to encourage, you know, like the diaspora population to invest, should they also extend the same incentive to the diaspora populations?
Sure. So there's two arguments that could be made here. One of the concerns that people who have been living in Africa have when we bring in these waves of the diaspora with Western money is driving up the prices of real estate, cost of living. And these are very real concerns that I think that we can't just kind of shoo them away. Those are very real concerns. However, we're bringing money into the economy. We're bringing a lot of money in. Like a single person from the diaspora, a single retiree coming to Ghana can create 20 to 25 jobs, full-time jobs.
Sheesh.
Yes, because they need health care, they need transportation.
They need a gardener.
Yeah. Absolutely,
a gardener, driver, cook,
and then those people need to hire people. It creates a flow of jobs. So Ghana created the right of abode. So basically, a golden visa if you're of African descent, $500 essentially fees. You could be on the path to Ghanaian citizenship.
How long does it take?
A few years,
okay,
not too long, but within a couple months from right now, if you're of African descent and you use the right of abode. You have permanent residency, you have the right to do business, to work in Ghana, you have the right to retire in Ghana, and you have that pathway to citizenship right off the jump. They want to bring as much of the money in as they possibly can. I actually agree with them from an economic standpoint, but at the same time, I don't want to brush away the concerns that people have about this wave kind of changing the landscape of Ghana.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be incumbent on people from the diaspora to integrate into the society in a way that doesn't displace their fellow Africans, and I think that what we do, we try to help them do that. But again, these are valid concerns.
Yes, and we also have, you know, like one of our listeners here, Afro-Jamaican, who he wants to come to Kenya, and he currently has a movement.
He wants to, or he's coming?
He's coming. He's coming either way.
All right.
But he wants that right of abode. He wants Kenya to have something
similar.
So
if
he's
not
pushing
better.
for that. Yeah. So he's pushing for that to happen in Kenya. But again, you know, like there are those concerns, you know, like he constantly talks to us, and we sometimes tell him about the concerns that sometimes local people may have when property prices start going up and all those other social differences start being, you know, amplified.
I think that the visa issue is, I think, ultimately going to be a very positive thing for for all of Africa, really. I hope that one of the changes that they make as well is to allow for more inter-African travel. I think we need to facilitate that. I think that we need to...
Interesting that very interesting, right?
Because we have that in Europe.
Yes.
So in Europe, if I land in Paris...
Shenzhen type
Shenzhen
stuff?
region, yeah.
Yes.
If I can land in Paris and I can go to Italy if I want to, how come I can't land in Ghana? You tell me, oh my gosh, things are great in Kenya. Why can't I just pop over to Kenya? And then can't go down to Angola if I want to.
So we've had these conversations, you know, like even here in the studio before, and the African Union had been working on something on, actually not the African Union, this one is within, as far as freedom of movement is concerned, within the East African community. It also still has issues like, for example, if I'm going from Kenya to Tanzania, which is right next, if I'm flying, I still have to have a passport. You know, like when I'm flying, they've started implementing this new visa where you have an option of you can get just a Kenyan visa, or you can get an East African visa that Tanzania has not quite, you know, signed up for it, but currently, because it's kind of voluntary, currently you can go to Kenya, Uganda, I think, and Rwanda.
And
there are those
Burundi?
3 countries that you can go.
Burundi
But
is not
eventually,
in
the plan... No, Burundi will always do whatever Tanzania says. But so Burundi is not in yet. But they're planning to have that. And people have been requesting one for Africa. Not only movement, but also free air transport. Right now, if you're an airline, if you're Kenya Airways, your flight has either to be originating from Nairobi or going to Nairobi. Like if you're, for example, in Nigeria, you're in Lagos, you cannot pick up people and take them to Ivory Coast.
And just imagine like how that would be if in America we had to deal with that logistically. So I came here, I came from Virginia through DC to come here to the show.
Correct.
Imagine if I had to go get a visa for DC, then a visa for Maryland,
For Maryland,
to
yes.
shoot through there.
Yes.
I mean, you see, we wouldn't have the interview in the way we're having it right now. And think about all the businesses that aren't able to collaborate the right way, the connections that are never made, simply because
Yes.
we've artificially restricted travel between the different countries of Africa.
All right. A lot of gems being dropped here. There's someone, a war wearer, is saying this man is telling too many truths.
And speaking of truths, there's a question that has been asked on YouTube.
There was a question on YouTube that was pretty much, does he have protection? Because these are some very bold statements. Since he came from Virginia, I think I know what the answer is. What is that thing that they carry that they're allowed to hide? And it's an equalizer, and it has a brother.
Hey.
Concealed carry.
Okay, all
Yes,
right. Let's go. You're going to talk about your security later on, but let's read a few comments here. Washeke says the West wants the status quo to continue so they can continue robbing Africa of its resources. And Sleodwar is saying, I'm loving the candid conversation going on. Washeke then further says, not only natural resources, but brain drain as well. Look at how the best and brightest are given scholarships to study abroad. Now, and I know, like in this interview, we're going to be going a bit all over the place. You talked about Africa, like as an incentive for people who want to invest in a business or are looking into the future. You talked about the workforce of Africa. Forget about even education.
Sorry,
you talked about the workforce of Africa being not just, like a labor mill for unskilled labor, but you talked about how skilled the African labor force is. I want you to talk about that a bit.
Well, let's talk about the level of college education that exists in Africa right now. I believe it has exceeded in many countries 20% of Africans in those countries have had a college education. Projected is by the end of this century, hopefully we're all around to see that. Go science! But we will be seeing roughly 25 to 30% of the continent of Africa at the current rates will be college educated. Now, different degrees, different levels of degrees, but they'll have a college education. Africa's population is projected to go to 4 billion, but depending on the estimates.
Wow.
If we could just do the math here real quick, that means that there's going to be over 1 billion college-educated Africans. That's the workforce that you're going to be drawing from. 1 billion.
Wow. Okay.
They can't drain that many brains, no matter how hard they try.
Okay, all right. That's interesting.
Wow.
And then we're gonna get back to talking about the education too. But let me just read so many comments here coming as we're having the conversation. Washeke says lobbyist is equal to legal corruption.
Yep.
And then Slay says Africa Uncensored did a series on Kenyan debt. It's wild. Africa Uncensored is a very interesting YouTube page that I'm going to share with you. They have very interesting content from an independent journalist coming from Kenya, so it's very educative. Also, land issues and all these other things that you might want to know before you get there. And then I can see here Esther Mulusa is saying, where do you source your construction materials? Do you import them or use local West African resources? For example, in Kenya, we have untapped Vihiga granite and even marble, but yet we import Italian marble. So talk to Esther.
All right, yeah. So for the foundation, as much as we can, we source from West Africa because the cost is better. For certain types of rebar that is sourced from out of the country, we hope to have more steel mills in Africa at some point. As far as marble, things of that nature, we do grab some of the Italian marble at times, but that's just because we're selling to kind of rich people, and throwing Italian on there helps our stuff sell a little bit better. We are always looking, though, particularly with our lower cost houses that are still extraordinarily nice, we are looking for ways that we can provide the highest quality by sourcing local materials. And for us, that's not us trying to help out the local economy, but I think it's just really good business. the more stuff that we source locally, the more quality control we have over it, the more reliable the more reliability that we have that we're going to get the stuff on time at the way we want. So we do try as much as we can to do things locally. I'd like to see more of the appliances manufactured in Africa. I'd like to see
That's an interesting
manufacturing
one.
come in because, again, our appliances, a lot of those are sourced from Asia and from Central America. So I'd like to see more manufacturing in West Africa. There's absolutely no reason it can't be done. We're just waiting for it to be done.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. And then Slay here says it's mind-boggling how a flight within Africa can cost roughly $2,000.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
very common. And sometimes it's countries that are next to each other. And then Washeke says, as much as African countries are free, the colonial masters are still pulling strings, and that's one of the reasons for closed borders. Gaddafi tried, and see what happened. So yes,
Shadow banning.
Oh yeah, Shadow Ban time. We're going to really do that.
Washeke. They shadow banning money.
Yeah, but
Wow.
now
Y'all are just going hard today.
let's go.
Brad.
Yeah,
Oh, you're gonna pass the hot potato to me? I love it. Let's do this.
let's
give me
You
some
know
salad.
he has no filters. So,
Kinda.
I think Brad has some kind of special protection or someone, put it here. But let's go to something different. We already started talking about education, and you said African universities are far better than the West gives them credit for. Please speak about that, because
All right.
everybody wants to
All
come.
right, so-
everybody wants to come to Harvard. Everybody wants to
Education.
come to Yale.
Princeton.
Hey, they're very hey, good schools, good schools. No, I'm not gonna throw any shade at any of the American universities, not too much. But what I have colleagues who've worked for me, particularly in the analytics side, who were educated in West Africa, and one of the things that I was curious about was how hard would it be for me to have got my degree if I went to a West African university? So my background's in mathematics, financial economics, econometrics, and so with the advantage that I have is that it's very much a yes or no, right or wrong type field. Like if you're doing math, the equation is either right at the end or it's wrong for the most part, theoretical math aside. And so I took the financial economics and math final that he had saved. I took it for the University of Ghana and Lagos University, and I was absolutely shocked with how rigorous the finals were. They were actually at graduate level, like in terms of the difficulty of the questions. So anyone who's graduating from these universities, if you're able to survive a West African university, and I could say it's just for math and economics. If you can survive what they do out there, you're absolutely legit. You're fully qualified in math. And I think that because there's not the financial incentive, see, in Western universities, particularly in America, the customer is the student. And what does the student want? The student wants football teams. They want parties.
You
They
mentioned
want a loose alcohol policy. They want to have they want frat houses. And I don't blame them. That's great. When you're 22, of course you want that. But it doesn't coincide with being very good at mathematics. In West Africa, the professor does not give a blankety blank whether you have fun, a social life. They will be sadistic. As far as what I could tell, they are a bunch of sadists who just want to push their students as hard as they possibly can.
Yep.
If their students can't handle it, if they complain to the dean, there is nobody to hold their hands. There's no safe spaces. So frankly, if I'm hiring right now and I'm hiring in those fields, and I know I can get an analyst from West Africa, and he won't be as expensive as the Western person, and he's not going to be soft, I'm going West Africa. Like, why do I want a softie from America when I can get someone who's basically been through the Marine Corps of colleges?
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
I mean, if there's any Americans who are tuned in, these are Brad's opinions.
But it's very interesting.
But it's very true.
That Brad is saying this, and we all have gone through the African education system.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what we did in what I guess they're called elementary as well as secondary, right? Which would be high school here, right? What we did in there, and then we came over here to college, and you compare the education, you're like, okay, wait.
Yeah.
When is the other shoe gonna drop?
Yeah.
Because you're waiting for that shoe to drop, and it never drops. And you go through 4 years, and if you know what you're doing, you can pull it off in 3 years, and you graduate, and you're like, wait a minute, You mean I didn't have to have the material that I started with in my first year of college? I didn't need to know it in my
third year.
And when I graduated in fourth or whatever, like it's not cumulative.
I'll say this. I was a tutor / adjunct back in the day, long time ago.
You?
Yes.
Say it again and look at the camera.
I was a math tutor and an adjunct. Now, we are talking about college.
Correct.
In high school,
Yes.
I don't know if it has changed, but there was a point where math became optional. Math was optional towards, I think, your last 2 years.
Where you're talking about
Here.
Okay.
Math is optional.
Oh, okay.
Mathematics is optional, was optional. I don't know if it still is, and I can be, but I know my experience was at one point mathematics was optional in Baltimore.
Wow.
City.
Okay, that's interesting.
But it's mandatory in college. So you'll find freshmen,
Yes.
if you don't succeed or pass, you have to take developmental math.
Yes.
Developmental math
Which
is
has
ideally
no college credit.
No, it is not.
Yeah.
In order for you now to proceed to college algebra, you have to do developmental. You know what developmental math is?
Yeah.
-2 + 3.
What?
Yeah, he's true. This is true.
Okay.
Minus you have to this you're tutoring college students on addition and subtraction. BODMAS. Okay?
Brackets of division.
Forget 2x
they
plus
call it
3y
ped
equals
maths
whatever.
here, I think.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But we're talking about forget 2xy plus 3
very
whatever. No.
basic math.
Basic math. And we're talking about students who have been accepted into college.
Wow, that's
Okay?
quite interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now when Omosh is talking about waiting for the shoe to drop, I'm like, you remember the show where being punked, or is it pranked? Punked. So imagine
Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah. So imagine at that time I'm waiting. Okay, what's going on over here? Because this is not making any sense.
Yeah.
So
one.
you were waiting for Ashton Kutcher to pop up.
At,
and
you
tell
know
that you're
whatever
punked.
like what's going on?
Year one.
And I'm like, Allah, because and it is true that even in class, you're in college, you're attending class and you're looking at exactly what is being taught. You're like, wait, I learned that in Form 2, Form 3, sometimes Form 4. Those are levels
the
of high school.
schools, yeah.
So I think it's like 12th grade, 11th,
Yes.
11th.
Yeah.
10th,
Tenth,
and 9th.
10th, 11th, and 12th. Because we finished at 12th.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Right.
finished at
We
12.
finished
So
at 12.
then we entered high school in what, 9th grade?
Ninth grade,
9th,
yeah.
10th.
Yes.
So stuff we learned in 10th grade, 11th, is what is now being addressed in college.
In
This
college.
university.
Either first year or second year.
So
Depends
it
on what
becomes-
subject you take.
it becomes one
Biology
of
or
those-
chemistry or whatever.
And
Yeah.
and so you'd be perceived as what we would call the equivalent of a chop. You're bright, you're chop. Oh my God, how do you do this? I'm like, I did this in high school.
It's funny, when my nephews were like on the, I think like the 3rd, the 4th grade, I was showing them, there's a different style of math that's done here. So I was showing them how I was doing, like some long multiplications.
Yeah.
And they thought I was a wizard, they were like, wow, how can you do that? So I told them this. I told them something that they thought it was a lie. And when my mom came now, like their grandma,
Right.
she confirmed to them. I was like, when I was in the equivalent of what's 3rd grade here, age maybe 9, 8, 9, 10, I'm not sure exactly where, I had memorized the math table. You
Yes.
could wake me up in the morning
Yep.
and
And
ask me 11 times 12.
Yep.
And I would give you the answer. And by that age, I could do, like those long multiplications. We had been taught how to do that in
Yep.
that class.
Yep. And you lay it down and
Yeah.
you go down and
And they found that they were like, whoa, like how is that even possible? So that's
In addition to that,
Wait, you guys are talking too much.
sorry, I was going to ask if Mika went to school.
Sorry, my bad, Mika.
No.
Go ahead,
I
engineer.
have experience for undergrad in Kenya and grad school in America, and I can say grad school was easy. And both of them were engineering courses.
Yeah, you did engineering at
So-
home, right?
Yep, but I did engineering here for grad school too.
Okay.
Yep, and I can actually tell you that your grad school was very easy. The only boring part was writing of the papers. There's a lot of writing over here.
Yes.
Yeah.
You type
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Now there's Chat GPT. And
You will fail, my friend.
no,
You can
not
always
just
hire a
Chat
Kenyan to write your
GPT.
stuff.
There you go. There you go. Actually, CBS did a feature.
Yeah,
on-
you saw that. You saw
yes.
that.
Well,
Yes.
Chat
Yes.
GPT
No, no,
and
no,
PDF
no,
and
Look how much
no.
kids are hiring Kenyans.
They're hiring Kenyans to write their
oh,
papers.
you
oh
remember
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
I know a guy who does it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, hire Kenya. Don't use ChatGPT.
Okay.
I was gonna
Guys,
say-
make jobs for
ChatGPT is
Kenyans,
great.
okay?
Yes, no, I
Kids?
know a guy who does it.
Kids hire Kenyans. Don't use Chat GPT.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's PEMDAS. Our board master is PEMDAS.
PEMDAS, yeah,
And
PEMDAS.
Trish, by the way, is
A teacher.
a teacher. Not only is she a teacher, I think
She's
she's
an
an
educator.
assistant principal. If she's not a
Oh
principal.
yeah.
Okay.
yes.
So maybe
Trish.
maybe
Yes.
Trish can tell us a bit more about. And she's saying here the new math is supposed to promote deep thought rather than just cramming.
Okay.
And actually, that is very true because the thing is this:
Logbook. Oh, sorry.
when I was in high school in Kenya, in Form 1, our math teacher died.
Oh.
And then, so we were brought another math teacher called Mr. Kiari, and Mr. Kiari used to teach math with a Kikuyu accent, perpendicular, blah, blah, blah. So we didn't get anything, and we zoned out the whole class. So our class Y, Form 1 Y, Form 2, Form 3, we used to get the worst results in math. Like, we were the worst class in math. So when you go to Form 3 that time, we got another teacher, and he told us, I'm going to teach you how to pass exams. And you remember the Kenyan examination had
2 papers.
Section 1 and Section 2,
Yes.
right? It
Yes.
had 2 papers, but each paper had Section 1 and Section 2.
Correct.
And the Section 1, so he taught us how to do that first equation without using logarithm, the number 1 question, the one that used without using your log tables. Remember that was the first question?
Yes.
And then now he taught us now things like calculus, trigonometry, circumnavigation, linear equations,
Quadratic equations.
linear graphs. Yeah, so he taught
And
us
this
those
is high school.
questions that
Yeah.
the ones that came with 12 marks
with
for
higher
those.
marks.
And he was
Yes.
like, yes. And he was like, if you pass this and you pass that, you've gotten a 55. That's a C in math, and you're passed. So that is how we managed to lift our math grades in high school. Fast forward to college, math became the easiest subject because now we realize that actually what math did was it allowed your thinking capacity. You being
100%.
able to sit down and do those equations, because now when you go to engineering and you want to do classes like thermodynamics, materials, reactor engineering, those were math plus chemical equations added into them. You are being asked to calculate the density of metal that is going to be able to support the weight structure
columns.
of 50-story building.
Wow. Okay. That's now. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's how a civil
So-
engineer, you know what I'm saying?
So, Brad,
you know.
talk to us. What are your thoughts about, like, for example, what Mika is saying?
Take your kids to a proper academy in Ghana, and they will be doing significantly better than if you put them to a public school in America. And that's just not hyperbole. I think that a lot of American schools are not preparing kids in mathematics, in languages, and I think that a lot of politics has unfortunately taken away the autonomy from teachers. I think a lot of teachers do want to teach better. I think that they have to teach tests right now in America, and I don't think that they have the ability to push their students the way that they would like to and the way that they are able to in West Africa, and apparently Kenya. I mean, our guys are apparently doing some amazing things out there. But yeah, not to plug my thing too much, but just outside of our development, we have one of the best girls' schools in basically all of Africa, and I would say one of the best girls' schools in the entire world, where girls are being educated in mathematics. They are speaking 3 to 4 languages upon graduation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. Is that an academy in Ghana?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Wesley Girls High School. It's
Okay.
like when you get there on the ground, I mean, it's just so much more serious than what we have here. And one of the difficulties with mathematics is a language in a lot of ways. And imagine trying to speak fluent Spanish when you couldn't do basic conjugation. That's what we do to a lot of kids. We push them quickly, so that it looks good for the teachers, and kids just
the
never
numbers.
learn. Right. That doesn't really happen.
No
with
kid left behind.
Well, I'd say the difference between Ghana and here is that the kids are scared to be left behind because that teacher's coming down with the fury of God on them if they don't study, if they don't prepare.
You mean the cane? Oh, sorry. Did I say that loudly?
Oh, yes, they may hit your kid, and you just got to get used to that. and when your kid says,
you see the way he said it, it's like they may hit your kid.
Yeah.
And you know what? Your kid's gonna come home and they're gonna say, my teacher hit me on the hand, and it's okay, good. That's the mindset. Good. The teacher's doing a good thing for your kid.
So we like when we used to be hit by the teacher, our biggest fear was for the parents to know. We were like, we'd rather it just stays here.
Yeah,
please,
keep it here. In fact,
please do not tell
let's
my parents.
deal with each other within the 4 walls of this class or 3 walls and the door, because once it goes
Once
out
it
of
goes
here,
out, the parent always takes the teacher's side.
they don't
doesn't
ask
matter.
questions. In fact, they will come into school to help the teacher discipline
Yes. The parents were sometimes low-key happy when they had that the teacher disciplined you. So it's a very different culture, and I guess those are part of the things that you'll be helping people to adjust to.
And the guys, the thing is, I don't want someone to come in and say, "Oh my gosh, my child had such and such an experience." Well, think about this: they weren't exposed to drugs, they weren't exposed to violence. Anything that they may have been disciplined, or someone they saw or knew may have been disciplined, but that was for their benefit. It was because they want the kid to be successful.
Spare the road and spoil the child.
Exactly. And frankly, where would you rather have your kid? Would you want your kid in a place where there's drugs, where there's violence, where there's pressure to engage in certain activities at a younger age than you should? Or would you rather be in a place where the teachers have the authority to enforce the type of morals and the type of education that you as a parent would want?
Wow. Okay, you heard that.
I agree with our commenter. I think
So-
he's spitting too much truth. Somebody might be looking for him outside the
Yes.
studio.
So Trish,
The teachers' unions now.
Trish, the teacher said exactly. You study trends and figure out where your strengths are, and you focus on those areas. The rest are bonuses. And then Trish says, corporal punishment is a big no-no. This also means telling a student to sit in a corner alone, write the same sentence 100 times. You cannot. So yeah. So
Oh, she's talking about it here in America.
Here in America,
Yeah.
okay. And then Esther Mulusa says the K-12 system in America lays great emphasis on homework and computer-generated education, which is like a crutch in my opinion. Semi-illiterate parents cannot help their children with homework-based projects, therefore widening the education divide.
CBC? Sorry.
Yes, I want to remind the listeners that you're tuned into the OneMic Show, and I'm your co-host and producer, Ali Badawi. Our guest tonight is the president of the Rohrs Team, Brad Rohr. Now, his company assists the diaspora in making the transition from the U.S. to retirement or vacation homes in West Africa. His company also provides traditional real estate services for those seeking to purchase homes in the U.S. Now we'll shortly be talking to Brad about rivalry of Western powers and China within the geopolitical sphere of influence in Africa. And our lines are open. The number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. You will never get another Brad. So this is your chance to talk to him. It's 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. So save that number. Now before we continue, Mika and Uno Mike, the Rugby World Cup final between New Zealand's All Blacks and South Africa's Springboks is going down this weekend. Now, I don't know if Brad watches rugby. From the way he sounded, he wasn't very fond of sports, but we're going to talk about that. But the All Blacks and Springboks are playing in the World Cup rugby final this weekend. Now, where is the best place we can watch this? Mika, maybe if you can tell us a bit about this. Mika.
Hey, Ali. Hey. Yeah, the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup is finals are finally here after a long man. This has been a long tournament. This tournament has been 7 weeks. It's even longer than the Olympics. I think I don't think the Olympics has been this long, but it's finally here, and quite amazingly, despite what all the pundits say, despite what, the form book and how which teams were coming in form. It's the two most successful teams that are out there. Both of them have won 3 World Cups before. And it's going to be a repeat of the 2005 finals where South Africa won it on home soil, won it in home soil against the All Blacks. So it's going to be a finals that's going to be between the All Blacks and the Springboks of South Africa. And as always, the best place to catch up the game is going to be at Bora Bora Lounge. As we usually tell you, it's a virtual lounge. The game is going to be on Peacock. It's going to be at 3 p.m. Tomorrow.
Wait. So it starts at 3. Wait, 3 p.m.
3 p.m. the kickoff. That's where the kickoff is. That's where the game. The whistle blows.
Oh, the whistle blows at 3 p.m. EST. Okay, and there's no build-up.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know how American TV is. I don't think they're going to show any final ceremonies. If they show, I'm not sure, but I know that they have advertised just the time for kickoff. That's going to be at 3 p.m.
Okay, so 3 p.m. Bora Lounge. That's boralounge.com.
boralounge.com.
Yeah, for those who don't have Peacock, for those who cut their cable, boralounge.com will be showing it.
And for those who don't have Bora Lounge and they're not in a position to.
You don't think they're gonna be show that thing on what was the other last time they showed it on?
I don't think it's gonna be on NBC. If it's not America playing, it's not gonna be showing on NBC. It will have to most likely will be
that's
on
what
Peacock.
3 to
Peacock is NBC though.
Peacock,
yeah,
but Peacock is not on the main channel.
Oh no, you have to. It's a subscription.
It's a
the Peacock is a
yeah.
subscription, yes.
Yeah.
But I think there was a game that they had televised. I can't remember when, but that was during the. Anyway, we'll see.
Okay, we'll figure that out.
And
Brad,
if you want to physically go to a place, is there a place?
Swahili Village. For those who are in the DMV,
1990 M Street, the one in DC.
So Swahili Village, there's one in M Street, DC, and there's one right here next door to us in Beltsville, Maryland.
And in Atlanta, I think there's a place.
But they'll be showing it. I need to check to see where they're showing the
So
one
yes.
in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But the Kenya Exiles are actually sponsoring. They're working hand in hand with Bora as well as with Swahili Village.
Okay.
For the DC location, I am not sure about the Beltsville location, but officially the DC location.
No, it's the DC location.
Yeah,
it's a DC location.
Yeah, 1990 M Street.
Yeah.
And if you're in Atlanta,
Washington DC.
if you're in Atlanta, Kenya Exiles is African Soul Food Restaurant.
Yeah, it's a Kenyan restaurant.
That's a Kenyan restaurant
Yes, a
in
restaurant.
Atlanta, Marietta to be
Yes,
precise.
Marietta.
All right.
Not
Kenyan Exiles.
Marietta, Marietta.
Now, Brad,
Marietta.
have you ever watched rugby? Have you ever been, like a rugby? Do you watch any kind of sports?
So my big sport is basketball, and I used to watch every single sport that was out there, but as I got into real estate, I realized that I was doing a lot of work on weekends, and so I was surprised when I tried to watch football, and Randy Moss had been retired for 2 years. So,
Wow.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, so
Yeah, he must have been opening a lot of doors.
But no matter, that was a certain time period of my life. But no matter what, I'm always going to make sure that I watch NBA, and I guess now in Africa they're looping me more into the African Cup. I have to.
And the NBA is also coming to Africa now. They have a league in Africa.
Yeah, they do play in Africa. Normally, either between Rwanda.
They
Rwanda,
have a
right?
league in Africa where they're trying to develop players there, of course, to come and play for the NBA teams. They realized there's so much talent in Africa, so rather than wait for prep schools to go and pick up
and
kids,
bring them.
so they're starting to develop them from down
and
there.
Africa has never really put the effort into developing athletes that the Western world has done. The Western world takes the most promising athletes. They give them direct one-on-one training, nutrition, guidance from an absolute early age.
Correct.
Whereas a lot of the Africans have to rely on their natural talent until they get identified. They're being identified at 14, 15, 16, unless they're in the Western world like Giannis is. Or, versus like the Western kid who's going to be getting personal training from the age of 4. So imagine when the people in Africa start to have the same access to training, just by the sheer numbers.
The academies.
Yeah, when the
basically,
academies
open
really
the
catch up,
academies,
when they
yes.
really catch up, I mean, look at France.
Yeah.
I mean, France is basically Africa's
Yes.
soccer team right
Yes.
now.
It's an
Yes.
African team, yeah. You know, so that's a business idea that you might be giving someone. You know, like which I think
absolutely.
which I think people haven't, you know, like even people in sports haven't thought of this in the 3 dimensions. In one sport where there's all these training facilities for is the long distance running in Kenya. Because Kenya is known for long distance running, and
Yep.
we have a
Yeah,
very
we have a
very
plethora,
robust system.
multitude, yes.
Yeah. So right now we have the greatest marathoner of all time. His name is Kipchoge, Eliud Kipchoge. They actually just unveiled a bronze statue of him at the Nike facility. But now here's an
in the
interesting
Netherlands.
thing. In the Netherlands.
Yeah, the European
He's
headquarters.
I think he's approaching 38, 39. But now the interesting thing
Are you sure he's not 50?
is that there's a young kid right now called Kelvin Kiptum who just broke his world record in Chicago.
I saw that. Yes.
Yeah.
That guy is scary.
And he's like 23 years old.
He's scary.
yeah.
He
He's-
is scary.
He's very scary.
Now, would he be as good if Kenya didn't have the training facilities that they have right now?
Probably
If he was
not.
just on his raw talent.
Probably not.
No.
Probably
no.
not.
He probably wouldn't get to that potential as quick.
Yeah.
Right. So what's going to
Yeah.
happen? I mean, how many athletes in Africa never developed the right way because they
But
didn't
then,
get that
but then,
kind of
but
training?
then you guys are forgetting one thing. You know, most of those trainings camps in Eldoret actually pay to play thing.
That's
So, and most of the people who actually go to train there are not Kenyan.
Yes.
They're athletes from every other part of the world who come there for high altitude training. So these kids are still raw. It's only that now they identified earlier because a lot of agents, a lot of sports agents have realized that that's a hotbed for good distance runners. So they start looking at them at a young age and start nurturing them faster. But most of them are still just raw talent. The training camps will benefit you after you come out. It's not like they go and train there from a young age. After they've realized they've seen your potential, they've seen you running for the schools, you're running good, then they're going to pluck you and try to put you in there.
Do you think that if they started training them even younger, if they put more of an emphasis on identifying talent at a younger age, would we see
Yeah.
the Kenyan runners go to an even higher level than they're at right now?
Yes, just look at South America and the US, the difference in the soccer system. In the soccer system, it's pay to play. So most of the kids who play in the academies, their parents are paying for them, right? It's only that in the last few years, the big soccer teams have started building academies. But then in South America, the academies, just like in Europe, because they know the importance of it, these kids start training from 9. So these kids from South America, the ones who are playing in the MLS, a lot of them right now, because they come into the MLS as young talent, but they're way ahead in development compared to an American who's gone through the college system.
Correct. Yes.
That's an excellent point. The reason that France has the team that they have right now is because a lot of the talent came from West Africa, and they went there because a lot of the academies were pay to play, and the parents couldn't afford that, and the France identified them as good talents and just said, hey, we'll educate you and we'll make you as good as we possibly can make you. And because they made that investment, now France has actually has those athletes, and frankly, think about the economic boom that is for France.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
And
brain
actually,
drain.
the other thing in Europe, even if you look at England, Italy, Germany, they start playing them at school. And then at school, at that young level, when they realize them, they have local academies that they take them to. Then from that local academy, they can either go to the club academies, and that's how a career starts. So they usually have a thing of like, you'll find that 9-year-olds every year, they have like 50,000 9-year-olds playing soccer to choose from, to start choosing talent from.
Now imagine
And
what's
that's
going to
at a monitor
happen.
age.
I was going to imagine what happens as the economic situation starts to grow rapidly in West Africa and Africa in general, and there is that excess resources that the African countries can put into developing their best talent across multiple sports. I mean, what is going to happen to the world sports landscape in the next 30, 40 years when that happens?
There's going to be a total overhaul.
Domination.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So let's move on here. Wow. There's so many things that are coming up in this conversation that were not even planned for, but this is quite interesting. I want us to talk about business and investment. There's a lot of Africans who have concerns. Like in Kenya, for example, the Kenya shilling was exchanging to the dollar for 100 shillings slightly over 3 years ago. Right now, it's over 150 shillings. That's more than 50%. Loss in value. So people are concerned. If I open up a business in Kenya, I use my dollars here. Open up a business in Kenya. I'm earning in Kenyan shillings. Am I going to be in a situation where I'm losing money? Because I'm sure also Ghana has also experienced, some issues with inflation.
Yeah, with the CD.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that?
No, absolutely. It depends on the structure of the business. Okay, so if you're earning in a country and spending in a country, there's really no risk because the inflation can be margined for just by holding on to fixed assets. So, for instance, if you have real estate, if the value of the local currency was to go down, your value is going to go up. A country that dealt with this very much recently was Turkey, of all things, where they dealt with actually the most extreme inflation for a period of time. As far as if you're investing, now where the nuance would come in is if you are trying to earn in Kenya or you're trying to earn in Ghana and then take that money out through a service and then spend it in the Western world. That's the tricky part where if you write contracts the wrong way, and this is with it works any way around. This would work. This is a concern if you're doing business in America and London. If you're doing business in London and China, these are always concerns. There are derivative markets. There's ways that are basically we have connections with financial organizations that basically can guarantee an exchange rate for you. It's not free. They charge commission for that, but a series of derivatives they can secure your business. But that is bespoke to every single business. However, if you are buying physical assets, generally you're quite safe because physical assets are held to a global market. So if you have gold, if you have timber, if you're in minerals, it just depends on how your contract is written. It's one of those things where it's like if we really dig into this, it's like let's make this a 5-hour show because it's a super technical question. Yeah. But yes, it absolutely can be taken care of. No problem whatsoever. Our company is margined against any sudden depreciation in currency. It doesn't mean that we are expecting that to happen, but we do always maintain a certain degree of insurance against that.
Oh wow! So there's a business strategy to actually deal with
absolutely. That. It's not terribly complicated. It just needs to be just like a shirt. It just needs to be tailor made to the individual. As long as we tailor make that solution, it's not terribly difficult.
Okay. All right. And then, you've also talked about, you've extensively talked about, artificial intelligence. And you feel that AI will benefit Africa more than the US.
Absolutely.
More than Europe and more than China.
Absolutely.
How is that?
It levels the playing field. See, when artificial intelligence is handling the value-added chain, and when it's handling the management of a business in a great capacity, your generational knowledge of business doesn't matter anymore. It just matters what proximity you have to natural resources and what access you have to the necessary labor pool to work alongside that artificial intelligence. Europe is not completely without mineral resources, but it's at a vastly inferior position to Africa right now. And in terms of demographic growth, the people of Europe have decided that reproduction is not part of their life plans. In the same way, they just don't have families, so they're not going to have population.
They're not
growth.
having babies.
They're just not. They're choosing consumerism. They're choosing
enjoying life.
Yeah, and there's other cultural reasons for that, but ultimately, as we see technology advance, we have to look at the points of differentiation because when AI is running things, it doesn't matter whether you're Chinese, American, African, South America. It doesn't matter. The AI is going to work exactly the same regardless of where you're from. So what matters is what are your resources? What are the differentiation points? And then the big one is going to be natural resources access to uranium, lithium, access to timber, access to solar energy, right? Big thing. So these are areas where I believe when we take the institutional knowledge off the shelf and we just look at the comparative advantages, it's eventually going to shift the economic outcomes into Africa's favor as long as they maintain autonomy. Now, if they work out trade deals where they just continue to give their resources out, no, it won't benefit Africa at all. If Africa just gives their resources to the West, no, it doesn't matter what happens with AI. They're always going to end up falling behind. But if they keep the resources within their borders, value add there, and then they implement AI to optimize that value added chain, yeah, they're going to blow up economically. And there's really nothing anyone can do about it.
Wow, you know what Washeke here says, it's interesting to see an outsider like Brad see the opportunities that we don't see.
Kaiser Soze.
Well, they are
Afro-Jamaican.
Afro-Jamaican,
yes,
sorry, Afro-Jamaican.
Folks from outside will see things. It's just the same way as when we go back home, what we end up seeing in terms just by having the exposure of having lived out here, and then you take yourself back home. When I say back home, forget the town, the village. Okay? Like, I come from an island. That in of itself, if you're going to do any comparisons with, say, any vacation spots that we go to in Florida, that we go to in Jamaica, Bahamas, blah, 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 the minute I hit the island, it's fresh water and has beaches, and there's no, stingrays, there's no jellyfish, none of that stuff. You start thinking, hey, I could turn this into a small little, I could put a little boardwalk over here, make this happen, blah, 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 have guys come and sit and fish, and then go have a guy sitting with a frying pan and, fry the fish for them and charge you, So there's things that you think of just because you have been exposed. But without that exposure, you don't get to see it. So, yeah, and it's our outsider will see more than we see. Goes back to your analogy of giving a child food. What is it? If you don't expose a child to anything but fufu, that's all they know.
That's all they know.
Right?
Yeah, and nothing else.
So if you start giving them rice, they're like, oh, you mean there's actually an alternate thing you can eat? So, yeah.
Okay, and what about, also, just Americans who are looking for investment opportunities? Maybe right now is when minds are opening up a bit to Africa. Why is it that you always hear people talk of Dubai, people talk of, like Singapore, like some of these exotic places that everyone else is talking about? What is it that has still blinded people to what kind of potential that, for example, that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, well, Dubai and Singapore were both excellent countries at marketing themselves. Remember what they led with was, we're not going to tax you if you bring your business here. Now, in West Africa, there's not been any country that has gone through and said, we're going to be a complete supporter of your businesses. Now, they have policies in place that make business very, very, very appealing. I would say more so than Dubai or Singapore, but they just haven't marketed it.
Marketing.
And that is the biggest thing. The Dubai was supposed to go bankrupt in the year 2000. Dubai was, the stereotype of Dubai in the 90s was, these are just a bunch of rich sheiks who got a bunch of oil because they're lucky. They won the lottery in terms of where they were located, and they're going to spend all of their money on frivolous things, and then they're going to go back to being a poor area. But the leaders of Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, were absolutely forward-thinking. I think some of those genius people of all time, because they marketed themselves. They made sure that they subsidized the biggest skyscrapers. They made sure everyone knew that this was going to be the place to do business.
Yeah.
And remember, Dubai and Singapore both had another thing in common was they had an iron fist on anybody who would cause crime or disharmony in those areas.
Yes.
You're not allowed to chew gum in Singapore. You can walk around in white socks in Dubai and your feet will stay white. They keep their stuff so clean, and they had a very focused mission. Geographically, Africa's in a better position. In terms of potential, Africa's in a far better position. Dubai is entirely a financial organization at this point. Same as Singapore. They don't have resources. Singapore imports, I think, 70% of their food. If they lost trade, they're dead. I mean, they're in a really bad spot if you think about it from a strategic standpoint. As long as things stay stable, they'll be okay. But Africa can really go to the next level. I don't know which country and which city is going to say, hey, we're going to make a focused mission to be the next Dubai.
I think Rwanda is trying to do that. Not necessarily next Dubai, but they're really trying to attract businesses.
They
international
are.
businesses.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. But no, not necessarily create another Dubai, but they've really done a good job based on where they were in the 90s after the genocide and where they are today. So Rwanda is trying to do that.
yeah, night and day.
They have an NBA ready arena in Rwanda, and I think the first NBA game in Africa
It's
might
probably
get
going to
played
happen
in Rwanda.
there. Yeah,
Yep.
it's probably
Yeah.
going to happen there.
What Brad is addressing here is making me have a second, third, fourth, fifth thought.
About being in America?
No,
Okay.
about
Doing
looking at
business in Kenya.
or just looking at Africa from a different lens. Because the lens that we sort of happen to see it from is through corruption. As he has addressed the issue, but he has broken them down. Let's say for example, corruption. An inability for opportunities are not there. But like Washeke identified, it's interesting to see that there's something that Brad is seeing that we are not seeing. Right?
It's almost like it's taking you hearing him saying it for it to kind of like
For it to sink in.
You're getting that
And
aha moment.
we know some of these things that he's
No,
talking
we
about.
know
Yes,
him.
we
It's
know
not like
them.
some of them. We know them. We have the checkbox. We've
Yeah.
lived them.
Like now, for example, when Esther was talking about, marble and granite,
In Vihiga.
in Vihiga.
Yeah.
I did not know.
Now that I did not know.
No, I did not.
We have a lot. We
So-
have a ton of raw materials. You name the thing, we have.
But
that.
we're
And I
always
think-
importing that stuff.
And that's the thing.
we
but
export. We take our stuff. It's processed outside and it's brought back and sold to us at 6 times the cost.
and those are the things that I think we probably those are the mental barriers, the structures, however you want to call them, the obstacles, the mountains that probably we have imposed on ourselves that we can break. The idea that and I think before we even started, and maybe you're going to mention that it's the value. I think you're calling a value chain or whatever it is, making
Oh,
it
yeah,
vertical.
Yeah, the vertical value chain.
Like now, you don't have to go far to get marble. I don't have to go to Italy. Like, if we can actually embrace, because chances are there's probably somebody, an engineer, maybe like Mika, who probably can go and say, let me go and look at this marble. Let me go and look at this, whatever, what Esther was talking about. And you actually start getting good quality stuff that is there, which means that cost of production is not going to be high. Even it's right there. It's just resources are available. We're talking about Ted Josiah, something that he probably did not even know coming in. And Ali, we were all surprised.
Yeah, I think we were really shocked that you know Ted Josiah.
Yeah.
And you've actually spoken to him. Actually talk to us about.
And by the way, Omosh doesn't even know this.
Yeah. Talk to us about the
Yet.
interaction you had with Ted Josiah,
Jajok.
and maybe talk about
That
his
one.
business.
All right, so Ted Josiah, I got to know him as an African manufacturer.
Okay.
So as I'm always looking for people who are adding value in Africa, and because I see it as something that can be replicated in Ghana, in Cote d'Ivoire, in places where I have my investments and stuff I want to see happen. And so I'm sitting here, I'm going through here, I'm just looking through African business. I come across this company called Joka Joke, and I start researching who is this guy, who's putting this together, because it's vertical integration of bag manufacturing. So the stuff is beautiful.
What do you
Yes.
mean by vertical integration?
So what that means is that the raw materials, the value added, actually turning it into bags and suitcases and wallets, and then the distribution and marketing is fully vertically integrated in Kenya. It's not like parts of it are coming from Asia and parts are coming from here, and it's sold through stores, through a Macy's outlet. It's completely vertically integrated, so all the money stays circulating in the Kenyan economy, which is the exact type of businesses. And it sounds silly just to be looking at one example of a bag manufacturer, but it's so critical to the development of a country. that the value chain stays vertical and it causes circulation. We call it velocity of money. And the stuff he's producing is so good.
The bags, the
oh,
luggage,
yes.
the
oh,
jokes.
the Joker joke
Yeah,
is
the
so,
quality is good.
The
quality is actually
bags.
really good.
If you've ever been to a car show and you went and sat in a Bentley or a Rolls Royce, you know that really good smell that you get?
Premium.
That premium smell.
Yes.
And you go up and you'll sit there and you're going to hold the bag and you're going to look, people are going to think you're weird. Because you're going to be like in the airport holding your bag up and smelling it. Because it's like, it's all raw leather. It's like the best, because again, when you're building bags, so an interesting thing that I learned about that, right? It all comes down to the cattle, right? So you got to get the best leather. Because without the best leather, it's like trying to build a fast car without a good engine, right? Doesn't matter what you do. Bad leather is bad leather. And in Kenya, they have just this perfect strain of cows that they get it from. Louis Vuitton doesn't have access to it. Chanel doesn't have access to it.
Wow.
None of these guys. And I don't mean anything against anyone who is Louis Vuitton or Chanel. All I'm saying is that your
Shadow
bags are not as good as Joka Joke because you don't have the best materials. That's it. Wow. Joka Joke, and they're all handcrafted. So I've seen how they've developed it. Like it's intense artisan work. This is not like Louis Vuitton. They're being pressed out of a machine. The machine, shh. These are handmade. It's ultra high luxury, and the only reason these things aren't thousands of dollars is because of vertical integration. See, if Joka Joke, if they tried to do what they were doing, but they used traditional methods where they would just source here, their bags would cost several $1,000s. But because you have a lot of efficiency by vertically integrating, they're producing these products that I think they're probably the best in the world right now.
Ted Josiah,
Wow,
I hope
Ted
you've
Josiah.
heard. Ted.
Ted Josiah.
About in here.
You know this video?
I think Ted now needs to come on the show and tell us more about this Joka Joke.
Yes, I think, Ted, you've earned your spot here on the show. and of course, I was telling Brad, like when he mentioned Ted, I told him Ted is a legend in Kenya.
I knew he was a movie or a music producer.
Producer.
I didn't know how amazing he was. I thought he was a bag manufacturer who also.
That's something he started doing in less than between the last 5 to 7 years.
Think of when in music. Think of by American standards. Think of Quincy Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Think of that's where Ted Josiah was.
That's incredible.
In the Kenyan music industry.
Absolutely humble guy too. Absolutely great. He's answered questions I've asked about the bag. He's just absolutely A-rate guy. One of the better people I've ever met. I really like the guy.
Okay, Joka Joke.
You see why you need to land in Kenya?
You know what? Okay, you guys have sold me.
I mean,
I was trying to help.
In fact, if anything,
Yeah.
now you have a reason to go and see Joka Joke for yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, would that be a fun crossover episode? I would love to do that.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
In terms of from a manufacturing perspective and leather, you talked about leather with the whole
Yes.
tanning process and all of
Yes.
that. There's actually a ton, and when I say a ton, there's quite a number in Kenya of other
Yes.
people who are doing leather. They may not be doing it at that high level that he is, but there's small shops where you have guys like maybe 1 or 2 people who are actually like sewing the bags and doing belts and doing shoes, and they're doing, and you can go order a customized bag. Like, I mean, I've done it. I go to other people and I ordered a customized bag, and they even, stamp it with my name on it and everything, and it's, embroidered into the thing, and I pick the materials, the buckle, and I build my bag the way I want it.
It's incredible. It's a true luxury experience.
Correct. But what I end up paying for that bag, if I paid $150, I paid a lot of money for that bag that I customized. And I'm talking about a big duffel bag, about this big.
But let's put it
But
this way.
so his stuff, yes.
Are you losing with the bag that you got? Have you lost any bit of quality over the high price stuff that you'd get from Italy or Paris?
No.
Do you ever feel like, oh my gosh, this leather's just not as good?
Oh, no. And actually, you talked about leather being,
Yep.
that you have to have the right leather.
You have to have the right cattle.
first bag that they did, because they picked a piece of leather that was, because when leather is damaged, it's damaged.
Yep.
It's not like
It's skin.
it's not like you can repair
It can be fixed.
No, you can't. And so when I got the bag, because the bag was delivered to me, I looked at the bag and I'm like, okay, this looks good. And then I look at this other piece, I'm like, oh no. And it's because it was, I think whoever put the bag together didn't look at it. It had a flaw. So he shouldn't have used that piece on that bag. He could have used that piece somewhere else, but not on the bag. And so I called the guy back and I took a picture and I showed it to him, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna send somebody pick the bag up, and they replaced that particular piece.
It's incredible
Took the
service.
bag apart, put it back together, and gave me full leather that's not damaged. So, and you're right, if it's damaged, it's damaged. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yep.
So yeah.
And I can tell you, like, so when you get into I've gone through my bag phase, getting all the fancy stuff, and I can't tell you how many times I have to take my stuff into the Louis Vuitton repair shop because that stuff tears so easy now. Like the string, and I found out talking to them that they actually go cheap on the threading that holds it together. It saves them like $1 per bag. Listen, when you're a multinational company,
yes. So you're looking at the
with
cost.
Joke, and I'm not going to say that's the only brand that does this, but I know for a fact they do it. They're using. No one notices. You will never notice the thread that's holding your bag together. How do you know if it's good or not? You have to rely on the manufacturer.
Yes.
The stuff that they're producing in Africa, it's again part of vertical integration. That's stuff that no one cares about. The thread is so far beyond what these major bag manufacturers are doing. I don't hate the stuff that I've bought over the years because whatever, it's a brand name, it has value, all that stuff, yada yada yada. So do baseball cards, right? But but as far as something that I want to use every single day, I want to use something like Joke because number one, it gets way more attention. Like when you're showing someone that you have like a bespoke African brand, everybody's seen Louis Vuitton, most everybody's seen Chanel. It's not a big deal. All you do is you look like someone who has a little bit too much money and you just want to show off. But when you have real classy stuff,
yes,
that's something that causes conversations. People are saying, I think that's what people, when they go for like brands, what they're looking for is that type of reaction. But you're not going to get that by going to brand names. You're getting it by going to ultra high quality. And so there's my plug for Joke.
Wow, Ted Josiah, you've heard this.
He has been plugged on the show. In fact, we need to call him for our bill.
We need to send him an invoice.
Yes, we send him.
I've never charged anybody.
We'll send him an invoice.
I paid full price for my bags, guys. I paid full price for everything.
We'll send Ted an invoice, and next to it we put a picture of Brad.
Yeah, but Ted is doing an amazing job.
Yeah, those bags.
And,
they're good, right?
And I think he brought his skill and perfection in music to the manufacturer
That's
of
a good
bags.
point.
He's so
meticulous.
He's a perfectionist, right?
Yes. He's attention to detail, and he will look at it, and if it's not right, okay, scrap it, start it all over again. And that's what producers do.
I wouldn't want to work for him because he would put you through the rigors. But I'll buy the stuff.
But you buy the stuff.
I'll buy the stuff. I'll buy the stuff.
Yes, no, that's the type of guy he is. And so Near Generational on YouTube here says manufacturing in various industries needs to be elevated. Africa needs to create manufacturing facilities and trade more from within.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
And so, just to go back to your point about the manufacturing, and that's something that we are seeing that I think folks in Kenya now, even the politicians, the ones who are forward thinking, are realizing we can't continue down the path that we're headed if we don't have manufacturing.
But remember, manufacturing doesn't start all on its own. There's a whole one of the reasons why you can't just go and start a factory and then everything magically works. You need to have logistical support. You need to have energy infrastructure.
Correct.
And for a while, in a lot of Africa, we didn't have it. But those problems are starting to go away.
Yes.
And someone says, well, what business should I be getting into right now? Anything that supports manufacturing, you don't even have to be that good. Get in there and support manufacturing, and you'll do quite well for yourself.
You know the lady who's designing shoes? Kenyan.
Enda? Yes.
Enda running shoes.
The running shoes.
The running
yes.
shoes. Yes.
There's that one. There's a lady who does Cabro. What do you call them?
Oh, she does. Yeah.
So she uses recycled plastic.
Yes. Is it?
Oh, I know this one. Yeah.
She does.
It's recycled plastic that she uses.
It's plastic, and then she makes Cabro.
She makes bricks.
Bricks.
She makes
Cabro,
bricks out of
whatever.
that. Yes.
You want me to throw some shade at Nike and their shoes real quick?
Oh, please do.
No.
All right,
Please do. Go ahead.
All right, so
Shadow banning.
all right, we're just gonna go at everybody. We're just dropping bombs. So Nike has actually been hurting black athletes physically. And have you ever looked at the pictures of? Okay, let's just cut all the political correctness out here. Black people tend to have wider feet than people of European descent.
Correct.
And the lasts means the shape of the shoe are for Nike are almost exclusively made for a European foot because that's the biggest market for them. And as a result, if you actually look at the feet, go watch an NBA game if you really want to be weird. Just look at the feet of people in NBA games. These kids who have naturally wider feet because they're taller. A lot of times their pinky toe is bent in. Google LeBron James' feet if you want to see what that's like. It's
Shaquille O'Neal.
Shaquille O'Neal, because they grew up in their formative years wearing Nikes. That, again, they use what's called a size D last, which is going to compress the foot of anybody who has wider feet, aka people of African descent. Ironically, this has already been solved in the dress shoe world. We sell in width and length.
Why?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
wide,
and Nike knows all of this. But Nike doesn't want to store wide lasts.
Brad, how do you know all this?
Because I talk to manufacturers all the time and I hear them complain nonstop. And
Wow.
And I also talk.
Is that why my Nikes are like squeezing my feet now?
Yes. Seriously, that's why it would be squeezing your feet. If you want some advice,
I think I need to take him back.
either get African shoes or New Balance, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, New Balance are actually very comfortable.
Slay says,
Yes.
protect Brad at all costs. That's what Slay says.
He has
they feel like there's
an
some
equalizer. He has an equalizer that is licensed. So hey,
Slay feels like there's some licensed, or rather some federal agents who are now
there are some
surrounding the
guys who are
building,
circling around.
who are circling the building.
Yeah,
to-
who are just
to
waiting.
try to figure out who's this Brad guy and what is he talking about. We need to bring him in for questioning.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Brad, here's the other interesting thing. You've also talked about Zimbabwe and Nigeria locking horns
Yes.
with Tesla over the export of lithium.
Yep.
Over the export
Oh
of lithium.
man, for the batteries.
Yeah, for
Yes.
the batteries.
Oh
yeah.
my
So lithium, primarily the lithium market, the need for lithium because of electric vehicles has exploded.
Correct.
And places like Australia, China, Argentina, those are places where most of the lithium has come from. But they're maxed out right now. They can't make any more. So we have to start exploring for more lithium if we really want to see all these cars go electric. Where are we going for natural resources when we can't find them? We're always going to Africa and finding where it's at, right? That's what we're doing. And so the deal we've always done, we've always known what you do is when you go to Africa, you go find the leader. There's your chalet over in Switzerland. Go ahead, sign this paperwork. Go ahead, let's take all this thing, let's strip mine all this stuff. And then they were shocked when they said no. Like what? Like you're not supposed to say no to us.
So
Yeah,
wait, so the Zimbabwe, that's Mnangagwa, and
Yep.
the Nigerian leader said no. I think it might
Yep.
have been Buhari at that time.
Yes. So they said, we'll cut a deal with you. You're going to do part of your value manufacturing chain right here in our country, and we will allow you to have access to the lithium, and then you can have all of your batteries. And the first reaction was, you can't do this. We want to do the manufacture where we want to do it. But eventually, when they saw that they are going to actually stick with their position, that they've started to make negotiations. Like,
Build the
we'll
factories.
build the factories. Okay,
Yeah.
fine, whatever, guys. We wanted to just take it for free and whatever, for a few pennies on the dollar, but whatever. We'll build your little factories. But look what happened there, right? It was just a little bit of a negotiation, just a little bit of pushback. This is like the bully. If you punch him in the nose, he walks away and never bothers you again. So what Zimbabwe has already said is that we're not punks. And that means that every deal that they get after where they've punched the bully in the nose is going to be slightly better than it otherwise would be.
Correct.
You don't think Uganda's looking at that? You don't think Cote d'Ivoire's looking at that?
They're all
Yeah.
seeing it.
Angola?
Yeah, everybody's
everyone's looking at that.
Everybody's
As they
looking
said,
at
oh man, they folded that quickly. Maybe we'll go back and negotiate a little harder next time.
or look
So-
at what we currently have, and if it's not set in stone, we need to come back and be like, hey, we need to renegotiate this thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess, like, talking about what Washeke was asking, what we don't see, is we don't appreciate these small wins.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we want to see change happen overnight, but there are these small wins that maybe are not coming at the pace that we want, but they're happening, as we speak. Because even what we've talked about, I'm sure a lot of people are not familiar that this has been happening.
There was actually a really good story that was completely omitted from the news. I thought it was one of the biggest stories of the year, which was the African fishing negotiations and the African fishing strike. So, give you a little background on this story. So, basically, West Africa provides a lot of the fishermen who fish in the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, and they are paid very low wages. Essentially, they were being paid less than $2,000 a month. They're finding people in the most vulnerable areas because this is not a super high skill job, but it's a high risk job. So if you're in a bad spot and you need to make money, you can go join the fishing boats.
Is it like those Alaska fishing?
It's very similar, similar. A lot of people think of the Alaskan fishermen as being dangerous just because it's cold. No, it's dangerous because it's fishing. It's dangerous because you're out in the open water
and that water can switch on you in a second.
Absolutely.
And if the wind comes and picks it up, trust me, Ali, living around water, I lose relatives all the time. It's like, oh, the guys went out to fish and they never came back. What do you mean they never came back? They died. Huh?
Now,
wow.
Yeah.
Now, there was always a person who would be desperate enough to do this high-risk job. So this kind of would keep the wages low. Because if you're not going to take my job for $200 a month, I'll just go to the next desperate person and I'll just get him.
Eventually, you'll find somebody.
You'll
So
find
wait,
someone.
it was only $200 a month.
It was $200 a month. It was actually $195 was the average wage.
Oof.
And fortunately, we have the age of social media. We have WhatsApp. We have Facebook groups. And the fishermen started to connect. And they organized a strike. And they actually said for 4 days, it went for 4 days, that no one would show up to their fishing job.
Now, what countries are these we're talking about?
This was Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana. This was Togo. There was some fishermen from Eastern Africa as well.
Oh, wow.
They all connected on social media. They just said all at once, we're not going to fish for you until wages go up. And they went and had Cote d'Ivoire came in with arbitrations. Within 4 days, they agreed to more than double the wages and reduce the work hours for every single fisherman that was working the European routes for West Africa. So, with a little negotiation, with a smallest amount of collective bargaining, they were able to double their wages. Now, this deal is only going to last until later this year, till the end of this fishing season. They didn't want to lose their fishing season. But the projections right now are, if they go back to the negotiating table again, that it's going to go between $600 and $800 a month, which is going to represent a 300 to 400% increase in the wages for those fishermen. That's the thing about it from my standpoint is I'm investing in the residential real estate of West Africa. The higher the wages are, the higher prices and rents will be pushed up in the area. I get some benefit from that. So I want to see people collectively bargaining. I want to see wages go up by any means necessary.
So these guys get much better deals than what UAW is getting for Ford and GM.
Listen, I would say that the Africans at this place, or in this instance, they did a better job negotiating. It's just a matter of, will they be able to continue this negotiation or will they backslide? So as long as they stay unified, I think that we're going to see wages continue to go up, and I think it'll be copied by other industries, the mining industry, timber industry. I think those are two other big areas where we're going to see wages go up when the workers start to negotiate collectively. If they don't negotiate collectively, they're just going to be picked apart one by one, but if they unify, I think they're going to do extremely well, which is going to bode well for the economies.
Yeah, talking about the timber industry, I work for a company that manufactures products made out of teak. So we can have a side conversation about that.
About the thickness and the manufacturing.
Yeah, because there's a lot of teak, in Eastern Africa. I think there used to be Elgon teak in Kenya, in Uganda, in South Sudan. There's a lot of teak, and this is very expensive stuff. But there's no proper industry. Most of the wood stuff built out of wood is still very cottage. Mm-hmm. There's no proper industry. Like, if, for example, a hotel calls and they tell you, we need 50 tables and 200 chairs within 3 weeks. Mm-hmm.
That's a tough order to fulfill.
Oh yes, we do have now this, because companies here, know how to do that. They know they have capacity. They're prepared, for orders like those to come. So they already have things in place, and I think these are the things that are slowly working themselves up within the African market, where we could start, building a lot of these products.
If you guys recall, wasn't there a time John Alanam was doing an investigation on?
Yes, it's called conflict teak. This is teak harvested from South Sudan.
Yes, that one.
Yeah, and it makes its way. It's illegal in the U.S.
Yeah.
The USDA will stop it at the ports, but this teak finds its way to Thailand. It finds its way to some Asian countries, and it hasn't gone through the process, so there's no guarantees on the quality of teak that you're getting. But yes, there's a lot of teak.
When you say through the process, what do you mean?
So there's a process that teak goes through before it's ready to build. It's a very oily wood. It has to sit in a kiln. First of all, it has to be between 40 to 45 years old. The tree itself, when it's cut, that's the optimal. That's the optimal time to cut a tree. So the tree has to be right in age, and then it has to be fired in a kiln for up to 6 months to get rid of the excess oil.
What?
Because you don't want to be sitting on oil because it keeps oozing. But you have to leave enough oil for the chair, because the oil is what keeps the chair. It's a live wood, so the wood is live. So that's what keeps the chair lasting for 25,
Years and
30,
years and
40
years.
years. So you have to leave the right amount of oil such that when someone is sitting on a bench, they're not sitting on a bench with oil on it. So there's a whole process that I can talk about, but then, I'll have to give you guys an invoice. And I don't think the two of you guys can afford me. I don't know about Brad, but the two of you...
Really? Really?
Ali.
This is where we have got it.
In the words of an esteemed elder, Vie Okiomaga, you can go dry.
Okay, all right.
No, it's okay. But yes, let's say DRC has suffered political instability for their resources. Trish says Africans are programmed to be compliant and not to challenge authority. Our flower industry pays Kenyans slave wages. That's Esther Mulusa. And Washeke says Ali amekula edibles nyingi sana mpaka sauti inapotea.
Yeah, you guys have to be nice to me today. I'm sick, so all of you have to be nice to me.
So
These guys are
amekula
sometimes not
edibles
very
means
nice to
that
me.
Ali has eaten a lot of edibles, and that is why this voice is lost.
Oh,
Don't believe what they say here.
Whether it is propaganda or not, we cannot authoritatively say it is. However, we're not going to deny.
You guys have to be nice to me. I'm sick
Boss,
today.
we are nice.
Yeah, okay.
Omosh, see, we are being nice. Even Mika, in fact, Mika,
Even in his sickly demeanor, he's still... yeah.
Mika, I mean,
I think those...
Stephen
those,
Mika is not
yeah,
commenting.
Those edibles, I
He's
think...
being
yeah.
nice to you.
Okay, all right. So, and Slay says, the same way you are nice to Uno. No. Yeah, I'm always nice to them.
Thank you, Slay. Thank you.
Okay. All
Ero
right.
Kamano.
All right, let's get back to the conversation. Now, with all these good things, there's always also people who are trying to take advantage of Africa. You talked about FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Okay.
Yeah, so talk to us about what he was trying to do in Africa before this thing exploded.
Sure. So African currencies, the ones that are not part of the West African franc, are often subject to currency attacks. It's not uncommon for people to try and short the market, to flood the market with the currencies, to manipulate demand.
Yeah.
And currency markets are highly manipulated. And so this puts a lot of people in hoping for an alternative. So we talked about, people are worried about currency risks. And cryptocurrency was supposed to be something that would promise some stability, some easy exchange. There's a lot of promises that come along with cryptocurrency. I don't hear them so much recently, but they were making lots of promises a couple years ago. FTX was actually planning an entire marketing campaign that was targeting West Africa in the same way they had targeted Turkey. And the idea was basically to keep the Ponzi scheme going, to get as many West Africans as possible to start to put their life savings into cryptocurrency.
Wow.
While trying to scare them away from using their own currencies. And frankly, there were a few people from the Ghanaian central bank that stopped it from happening. There was a few unsung heroes who really stepped in and basically shut down or slowed down FTX long enough that by the time they would have actually been able to get their claws into the West Africans, and they were very, very good at marketing. Like, if they were allowed unfettered access, they would have taken so many people's life savings in West Africa. And I'm sure they would have gone to East Africa just the same. But they held them off long enough that by the time that everything imploded, much of Africa was unscathed. A lot of people in Turkey feel so sorry for them. They got taken for a ride. A lot of Americans got taken for a ride. It is, of course, kind of interesting how nicely people get treated with white-collar crime in the Western world versus non-white-collar crime, because this guy was literally he was destroying people's entire lives. Like, and he was on house arrest in a nice little mansion
in Bahamas.
And yeah, it was just like, oh, should we be mean to him, sir? May you please come in? I know you bankrupted a whole bunch of young people who are naive enough to believe you.
But you know, the financial media in the U.S. had really propped up the guy.
Oh my goodness,
He was a genius, quote unquote.
He was everywhere. You know,
I mean, but the last
Steph
person,
Curry,
the last
Tom
person who was a
Brady.
genius that way with finances, who ended up hanging
Bernie
themselves
Madoff?
in a cell or
Bernie
whatever.
Madoff,
I mean,
no,
yeah.
I'm not worried about the Steph Currys and the Shaqs. Those are sports people.
No, I'm talking about the
yeah,
like
for FTX.
Even, even like the
But I'm
endorsement.
talking about the financial media.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
like,
okay.
like I have
the MS
reason for being suspicious when I see a sports person advertising a financial product, but when what's supposed to be reputable financial
Right.
media,
You're
like
supposed to know
CNBC,
better.
Yes.
It would be like a doctor coming out and saying something that was poisonous was healthy for you. These people are supposed to, in the media, and theoretically, we know that's not the case, but theoretically, a person from the financial media should have a lot of resources to audit every single company. It shouldn't just be them kind of pushing some propaganda from a specific person. So I know these guys have resources. I know some of the people who work for financial media. They are not stupid people. You know, it's if they're pushing something that and it ends up being bad, they had to have had suspicions, and there was probably a lot of pressure put on them financially from marketing, for a host of other reasons, deals made behind the scenes. You know, getting back to corruption in the Western world, think about that. The entire media was telling you FTX is totally fine, sending people like lambs to the slaughter.
So were they being bamboozled by incentive?
Well, you don't know. So I mean, I'm not the NSA. I don't have access to all their text messages.
Well, he was
But-
contributing to political campaigns.
Oh yeah.
A whole lot. Yes.
Yes.
So you see how it is pay to play? I mean, it's the same thing with land development. Not at that level, but if you want to be in land development in America, you are paying lobbyists, you are paying politicians directly.
Oh yeah. I mean, in PG County, I remember the former county executive was involved in that.
Was that Baker
No. Jack Johnson.
or Jack Johnson?
I think is that his name? Was it Jack? I think
The
it
ones
was-
who were found with chums in the freezer.
The wife was stuffing money in
the
her-
freezer.
I don't even remember about the freezer. I remember
There was a freezer.
Yes, in the basement, right?
Yes,
Was it
somewhere it was,
yes.
but I remember a freezer somewhere.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So and he was the county executive, but he was taking kickbacks from builders.
Yeah.
So these guys had free access in PG, and they did
Wow.
whatever the ham sandwich they want,
They came for him.
and they came and collected that guy up. It was
And,
him
Corruption.
his
and
wife.
at the same
Yes.
time, the regular person who wants to build a house on their family farm is stonewalled.
Yeah,
is
they
that-
can't do it. That's the other
Yeah.
thing that's so surprising here.
Yeah. So
you can't do it.
I mean, I would challenge anybody to go and do that. I've been through the development process before. I know everything from A to B about how you do it. But the question of whether or not you're going to get approved or not is going to depend on what strings get pulled behind the scenes. Again, all of this is legal. Bear in mind, this is not corruption because it's all
It's
legal.
all legal.
It's all legal.
No, he just said that he knows everything from A to B. So I thought it's from A to Z. So where is from C to Z?
Well, there's only two parties. There's the money and then there's the person. That's the A and B.
That's the A and B. All right, yeah. Now moving on to something different. Let's talk a bit of African geopolitics. There was a lot of coups that happened across the
Yep.
Sahel belt, and you've also talked about competition within the African continent by China and Russia against the French and the
Yep.
West.
Yes.
And that's the US.
Yes.
So talk to us a bit about that, because when we look at it, we're looking at it as, of course, we know the issues that the French and the other Western powers have done in Africa. And then now there's China and Russia. And some people are seeing them as saviors and some people are also looking at them suspiciously. But what's your take on that?
Well, it's nice that there's competition that can hold the West accountable in a lot of ways, as far as in terms of my interests in West Africa. But ultimately, Africa has to be fully independent of all of them. If they want to cut specific deals, that's
Yeah.
fine. But the idea that an African nation would be overly reliant on the West or on Russia is setting the entire country up for failure.
Yeah.
Because once you're dependent on the country, you're just a pawn. If you're dependent on Russia or you're dependent on America as a country, you are just a pawn that's going to be moved for geopolitical purposes. That's more of a mid to long-term talk. In the short run, what's really, in my opinion, what's happening with the BRICS coalition, which is essentially Russia and China, is that they are frustrated over what's happening in Ukraine. They're frustrated over the U.S. support of Taiwan, and they're trying to make geopolitical moves as much as they can without engaging in an open war against the West. And one of the ways to do that is by taking basically what is our breadbasket, which is Africa. This is where we get our resources from. This is what powers many parts of the economy for our special interests. They know, Russia and China are smart. They know if they take Africa off the table, if we lose that ability to go in, throw a little developmental aid, and then get all the minerals for cheap, if that's off the table, that hurts us economically. And if they're able to fully take Africa off the table for the West, it puts us at a severe economic disadvantage, because after that, they're going to work on South America, and they're going to work on isolating Europe and America. That's what their strategy is. America could easily counter that by actually having fair trade deals. I think even at this point, the West could easily have a great relationship with every country in Africa right now. I think that there's going to be a lot of bad blood, like what happened to, people are never going to forget what happened to Thomas Sankara or to Gaddafi. That's never going to be...
Shadow ban.
Yeah. That's never going to be forgotten.
Might as well.
Yeah, but let's just go all in on that one. However, if they engaged in fair trade deals and they facilitated cooperation instead of exploitation, I think the other part that's missing is this would benefit the regular person for the Western world, right? Why wouldn't we be better off if Africa was wealthy? You'd have more places to sell your cars to. Tesla could sell more cars. Porsche could sell more cars. LV could sell more of their bags that aren't as good as Joke-a-Joke to the Africans.
Shadowban.
Wow.
But
yes, it's true. He has a point on that one.
From the current system,
yes.
There are very specific
Correct.
financial institutions, or you could call them parasites, who benefit from the current situation with Africa.
So the regular white guy,
the regular white guy
is not benefiting from this.
No, absolutely not. When have you gotten your check from the mining companies that are taking advantage and strip mining the African nations? When did you get a check? Right?
A kiss begins with K. Sorry, those are the diamonds.
Because I think if the regular white
girl's
guy,
best friend.
if the regular white guy knows what you're talking about, they might push, our government to actually sign fair trade deals so that it can benefit them.
But they're suckers. That's the problem, is that they're suckers, and they sit there and they look at the average American. They're going to sit there and they're going to tell you how rich they are. And I have a lending practice as well. I see everyone's financial papers. I can't talk about anyone specifically, but how often do I see someone who's coming through? The couple is making $150,000 a year, and they got $15,000 in their savings account. These are rich people. They're only rich on paper. I think that the system is as much as it exploits Africans, I think it's also those financial interests are also exploiting the average Westerner. I think the average Westerner is as much of a victim of neo-colonialism as any African is, and I believe that we should be on the side of economic prosperity, not parasitic financial institutions.
So that's a very interesting take that I think, I personally had never thought about it that way. And it's just a very interesting perspective to think of it, of these exploitative relationships. They benefit a very small subset of people, but the regular American is out here struggling, living paycheck to paycheck.
Oh, absolutely. You look at the size. I would challenge any white person who's living in a city in America, or you're living in Europe right now. I mean, like, where are you living in right now? If you're in your early 20s, like, what's the stereotype of where you're living? You're living in a small little cube.
In an apartment, yeah.
Your small little cube, small little apartment. That's your wealth. You guys, how we're living in I can tell you how we're living in West Africa. I'm sure it's the same in Kenya. We're living in much larger houses than a lot of these Westerners are living in right now.
We grew up living in houses until we came here and went to apartments.
And so how does this make sense? If you're so rich as a country, why are your houses so small? Why do you have to work so many more hours? And I'm sure you can point to some poverty in Africa, but let's compare apples to apples. You as kind of like that educated, affluent person in America versus the affluent person in Africa, who's doing better? Like really, who's doing better? The guy in Africa doesn't have student loan debts. The guy in Africa can afford to have a family. You can't. You're saying how it's economically unfeasible for you to have kids. He's living in a large single-family house with a gardener. You're living in an apartment hoping to pay off your debt in 30 years, but it's probably going to take you 40. So this is not you're not colonized. You only think that you're rich if you're like the affluent white person in the Western world. You're completely colonized, and the struggle of the Africans to be free of neocolonialism is the same struggle that you have, but you're just too stupid to realize it. It's past 10, so I start to lose my filter a little bit.
Yeah, Washeke says in Kenya I can have a nanny, a driver, and a gardener, which is very normal. You know, like
That's the life she ran away from?
That's the life she ran away from. But I think, you know, like now, just taking a three-dimensional view of things, I think it's important to also start looking at things differently. Now, back to the geopolitics. You talked about Sudan. Sudan at the moment is a bit forgotten. There was a war that's still currently going on there. And you mentioned this being superpower geopolitics. What we know, it's two rival factions in Sudan that are engaging in a civil war. But you saw it differently.
No, what I saw was that you had the Western world basically supporting one side and the other side kind of leaning on Russia, which is effectively making this a small proxy war that has been forgotten by the media. There's absolutely no reason for, I guess you call it North Sudan, to be going through the issues that they're going through right now. It's just simply what the West does is they know how to balance the powers perfectly to get people to fight each other. See, if one side is very much stronger than the other side is not going to bother fighting. They'll come to a peaceful resolution. But if they get people just close enough that one side thinks that they can win, they'll continue to kill each other as long as possible, as long as they think that there's a chance, and both sides believe that there's a chance.
Wow. Okay. That's and Sudan is one of those few countries in Africa where your advice for investment is not that quite positive.
So right now, and again, I really hope to give different advice in the future. Right now, I could not advise someone investing in Sudan because there's too much Western and Eastern conflict right now that's being played out through the area, and I don't have the analytical tools to say how that's going to play out in Sudan. I can tell you about anything in West Africa. I could show you, even with a little bit of geopolitics, how it's going to be a good investment, how it's going to improve your quality of life. But sometimes they push it to a level where it's just completely off the table for me. Sudan's one of them.
Okay. And then you also talked about this newfound Pan-Africanism mindset. Is it all bark or is there bite in it?
We're gonna have to see. I think that just kind of going through, West Africa talking, doing business. I think that there is a different mindset in the new generation of businessmen. I've seen that in the Pan-African events, the developer conferences that we've been in, just the various business meetings that we've had, where people are starting to talk more about the value-added chain. I'm not hearing so much from people getting excited about Africa because they want to start a timber company. I don't hear that as much. It's still there, right? But it's not like what people are talking about. The conversation is, how are we going to build something that's going to rival Cocody in Abidjan?
Cocody Rock. Alpha Blondie sang about it. Cocody Rock.
Yes. Cocody, yes. Yeah, Coco. Yes.
Yeah, you got Plateau, you got Beverly Hills out there. It's got some amazing neighborhoods. But I'm hearing people wanting to, when I'm hearing people talk about how they want to get rich in Africa, they're talking business now. They're not talking mining. They're not talking about, I want to go do a fishing company. That still exists again. But I'm just saying, what am I hearing about when I'm talking to the business community? I'm hearing development. I'm starting to hear the right thing. What I want to start hearing is about logistical companies being developed. I want to start hearing about more of the service-based companies being developed. Those are the stuff that's going to kind of assist the long-term growth. I'm not hearing all of that just yet, the stuff I really, really want to hear, but I am very confident in the next 5 years that'll change.
Okay. All right. And then, there was the other, like contentious issue about pushing of social issues in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
You've talked a lot about that. The West, why does the West choose to target Africa for a lot of these social issues, these social agendas that they want to push?
They want you to argue over something that doesn't matter. If I'm negotiating with you to buy a car, you want the other person to be talking about what the monthly payment is. You want them to be talking about what the color is, the options. You want them talking about everything except for what the bottom line price is. And so let's say we want to engage in trade deals. I'd rather us be arguing over a social issue. If I'm the Western world, I want you to argue amongst yourself over the social issues. I want you to use all your energy up by arguing about this change the West is pushing, or this change, or this, that, or the other. I don't want you arguing over the specifics of a trade deal. I don't want you to be arguing over how you can move value-added manufacturing and jobs into the country. So you see the difference? We want you arguing over those particular issues that get you actually shadow banned if we talk about them.
Wow, like Uganda at the moment has been
Shadow banned. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
They're being sanctioned, I think, because of laws that they passed.
Sorry, Amosh.
So there is a risk to pushing back at these things.
Really, because China wasn't sanctioned, and they have the same laws, like the same things. They have the same laws in China, but they're not sanctioning them.
Saudi Arabia?
Saudi Arabia has the same laws.
They actually far worse in Saudi Arabia.
Far worse. But
Yeah.
you don't hear peep.
What did Uganda do? Uganda did a few things that made the Western world mad. They cut the deal for the nuclear power plant.
with China.
Yes. So they're making moves for energy independence. They're making moves to do value added. That's the big thing that they want to put pressure on them for.
So was the pretext? Could the pretext have been them passing the bill, the gay bill, the gay ban? Because that was what seemed to be
The LGBTQ.
the LGBT.
If
whatever.
it wasn't that, it would have been something else. The thing is that there's no end to it. They're going to pick whatever the issue is. They'll come up. No culture. You're not going to be 100% the Western world, and they're going to take whatever the difference is between your culture and what the Western world currently accepts as their culture, and whatever that difference is, they're going to try and make that the divisive issue, and they're going to say that that's the reason why we're going to sanction.
So this is strategic. It's not.
I can tell you they don't care. Do you think they care for a second about any of these social issues? I've been to fundraising. I've been to all these fundraisings for politicians. They don't talk about this stuff. They're talking business.
But okay, this is I don't know, Mosh. This is just very shocking. Like for most people who are actually hearing this, because now you have groups that have been set up that are fighting each other now.
Yeah.
In African countries,
Mhm.
because of these issues that have been brought.
Works pretty well, doesn't it?
If you guys recall, there was a time when UK was being interviewed by Christiana Amanpour. And there was she
UK
was
is
trying
the
to,
former
Uhuru Kenyatta was the
Uhuru
former
Kenyatta.
president before the current Ruto. So Uhuru Kenyatta was being interviewed, and there was this push during the interview by Christiana for Uhuru to address the issue of homosexuality, and it being law or whatever it was. And Uhuru's response was quite simple. It's a non-issue.
Yeah,
He said it's a non-issue.
it's a non-issue in Kenya.
What about this? No, it's a non-issue.
The interesting thing, those
So-
questions always go to African presidents.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You'll never hear MBS. MBS gets interviewed by these big media houses. You'll never
Thank
hear them
you.
asking about that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but this question it will go to Museveni, Ugandan president. It will go to the Kenyan president. It will go to African presidents.
Has it gone to Vladimir?
So that's
Putin.
an
Or can we
interesting
not mention?
that's an interesting food for thought.
No,
question.
it is because you have to look at here's the interesting thing. I think many a times, and he Brad has brought it up. I think there's a way we perceive things that we have sort of been, for lack of a better word, we've been programmed
Yeah.
to see things a particular way. For example, when he's talking about corruption, we're like, these guys are corrupt. But in order for there to be corruption, there has to be somebody on the other side. Like you mentioned,
Yeah.
Switzerland, you're like, the money is being transferred to Switzerland. Okay, on that end,
There's someone who accepted the money.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like how we talk when we hear about people buying properties. You hear of politicians in Kenya having places in London, having places in the US somewhere. You're like, there was a facilitator. It happened. It was accepted, right? So I think it behooves us to some point to start thinking and seeing things from just not the lens of, we are corrupt. No. There's a recipient on this side.
Absolutely.
Corruption happens. It takes two to tango.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just one person.
Yeah.
It takes two to tango. So those are the things that, probably we have to start looking from that from a different lens, from a different perspective.
But now, Brad, how are you looking to, let me say, uneducate people from this education that they think they have?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to get people, because these are the norms. This is what everybody believes.
Right.
But then this is what's actually happening. How do we do that?
Well, I'm a business, so my job is to educate like the investors and the people who are purchasing. That's really what my focus is. If somebody else takes the baton and runs with it, that's on them. From my standpoint, when I see people having misconceptions of Africa or not seeing like how the wheels are actually turning, if they make those types of miscalculations, what that's doing is it's giving the people who work with my company, who follow our advice, it's giving them a competitive advantage. I'm telling everybody right now to get in on West African manufacturing, to get your base set up. I'm not going to sit there and preach that. I'm doing that because I want them to see the opportunity, but I also sell houses to them. So I have a very specific audience. As far as how would I reach them, I can't really answer how to reach them. The information's out there. I think it's very easy to see. It's just a matter of whether or not people who are in the position that you guys are in, are you going to take the baton and run with it? Are the other similar podcasts going to take the baton and run with it, or are they just going to push sort of like a more simplistic narrative? That's the question that's going to happen. But for my clients, I want to provide them with the best analytics I possibly can.
Okay, and as we now get to a close to wrapping up, you've strongly advocated for everyone in the U.S. to at least, at the bare minimum, consider a plan B.
Absolutely.
Are you calling doom and gloom for the U.S. for you to, to be advising people to at least consider a plan B in case
He's saying
in case things go south?
stop, duck, tuck, and run.
Now, do you put a seatbelt on when you get into your car? Do you have insurance on your house? It's always important to have it's funny, like in business, we are always told to have an arbitrage. It's beaten to your head in business school that you always have a plan B. You plan for the unforeseen. And right now, I think that a person of means, a person who could potentially, I don't think it's for everybody because you do need money to be able to be an investor. But if you are a person of means who values not just the raw return on investment, which is very good, but you also value kind of that improvement in your quality of life, I think that looking at, I would always say West Africa, but I think I should probably consider Kenya as well.
Yes.
I would consider
Joke.
Yeah, consider what's going to be best for you and your family. If there was imagine how you're going to feel if there was an economic crisis. I've lived through two of them. I've three if you include the COVID times, right? I've lived through these things. Imagine if you had a place for your family to go to when those issues happened, where you knew your family was completely secure. You'll always have a place that you can lay your head, where you'll be at least insulated from that type of financial calamity. I think that's what an investment in West Africa does for a lot of people. Is that doom and gloom? You've already lived through doom and gloom. At least if you're 40 years old, you've lived through it 3 or 4 times already.
Yeah.
So, I'm personally planning on it. I don't have stress about what happens in America because I can go to West Africa anytime I want to and I'll be fine. So I don't feel any stress with what I hear in the news.
I think we've always had that option. So
Yep.
so we're like, toodles, we have a home to go to, and we're out.
But we take it for granted. We take it for granted.
We do. We really seriously take what we have for granted.
But I think also it's not necessarily taking it for granted. I think it is we're not aware. We don't know. We can't say we've been in a position to sort of assess, and when after we do assess, then we can realize, hey, enyewe.
I don't think we add value to it.
Because like you said, you know, we sometimes if you don't step out, like now, like
Correct.
If you don't
to see
see it different,
yes,
then
yes.
you cannot be able to assess if you don't have anything to say to compare to.
But even us who are here, you know, just like Brad said, it's like have it as a plan B. Even for us who are here, some of us are like, okay, I exited and that's it. America is it for me. I've closed the gate. I'm not heading back. I'm done. You know, so that's not. We don't even look at it as a plan. And the plan for some is like, okay, I'll retire to Florida. As crazy as that sounds.
No, it's true. And I think also what happens, and I think we've discussed this. I think we can sort of pick, and I guess, you know, open the mind. I mean, sometimes, you know, when you're just working doubles, when you don't have time to step back.
You need that. You need that time.
You cannot see it.
You cannot see. Yeah. When you're in the rat race,
you cannot.
You cannot see.
You know, and that is that. Even forget about, like, even look at, for example, like even with kids, you know, we are so focused on doing those doubles, triples, that even that one-on-one with your child,
you don't have time.
You don't have time for that.
Move.
So forget even having a plan B. You know, some people's plan B, the focus is what they have been taught from when they were young is buy land, build, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And you know, I'm glad that, you know, let me just do a precursor. You know, I'll be having my niece here November 10th. You know, to sort of address and look at first generation Kenyan. You know, you've been born here. Mm-hmm. You know, and the intricacies and the challenges of living in a household with African parents. Yeah, you know, I can't wait for that.
Yeah, Una, read for us some of those comments.
So some of these comments are like, okay, let me go back over here. Trish says quality of life, I think, and that is pertaining to what Brad was talking about. Blackstone, Grizzly, Proxy, Karibu Sana says Blackstone and BlackRock got their hands in that neo-colonialism.
Absolutely.
In Kenya, I have a nanny, driver, gardener, somebody mentioned that. That was Washeke. Yes. The West interferes in African politics a lot. Trish says, but it's kind of exploitative because we don't pay the nanny, etc., the equivalent of what you'd pay for the same services here. However, I have a...
I can speak to that one.
Okay. No. I was going to say that one. Yeah, we can sit down and debate because, you know, you can introduce pay and what. But yeah, go ahead and address that.
So I'll speak for Côte d'Ivoire. It's the relationship that we would have with like a nanny or with a gardener is a little bit different than what you would have in the Western world, where the person's much more closely integrated to your family. They're getting a lot more support. First off, they're getting a living wage right off the bat. A lot of families are taking care of the education for their gardener, for their driver. They're really helping them in ways that are just beyond the wages. And yes, you could earn more money as in the Western world, but you're also going to be subject to a lot of that's going to go to taxation. A lot of that's going to go to pay for your real estate. Whereas in Ivory Coast, you live with your family. Like, you live with your family, and you're generally treated well. So it's a totally different dynamic. I think it's apples to oranges to compare it.
That was my thought exactly.
Very interesting.
Yes,
because those little things are not necessarily brought up to par or talked about, because a lot of times, like you said, the nanny becomes integrated into the family. Right. So their kids also become kids of the home. Mm-hmm. So guess what? You end up paying school fees for them. Yep. Then you know, maybe even I know that there's some that we had in the family for 20 years or even 25 years.
Yeah,
and guess
normal.
what? When they retire and they go to the village, you actually buy them a piece of land and you build them a house.
Yes.
So they have a place to retire to. And I've seen that happen severally. And then, funnily enough, either another one of their relatives comes to replace them, or even I would say like some relative of theirs who they trained would replace them, who comes in, and it's the same cycle all over again. And that family kind of also gets integrated into your family, and you become the main provider for this family. So there is that, but there's others who obviously abuse, and I think that happens happens everywhere and all the time.
Of course.
And if you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
Yes.
And most times, most people do right. Most times, most people do right in Africa.
Yeah.
There's those are exceptions, but most times people do right.
Go ahead. In French-speaking West Africa, they're actually referred to as mommies. Like you literally say you refer to it as that's the mommy.
Okay, understood.
It's a sign of respect to them.
In Mombasa, most of them are called, like aunties.
Yes,
aunties,
auntie, yes.
Grizzly continues to say, you guy Uno Media is there to program. It started with boomers. They got major programming.
No disagreement.
Washeke says, ICC, UN have different rules for Africa and the West. Look at the vast differences in the Putin response and the Israel one. Grizzly says, we in doom and gloom. World War III been started. Got to protect your neck. What these elites do behind scenes, so to speak, hatujui means we don't know. Aren't those called benefits in quotes? But Trish, I think that can and should be a discussion. But I think, can we first start by saying, can we sort of raise the minimum wage for some people from $7.25 to a livable wage? Because there's exploitation here. Yes. What benefits do people get here?
Yes.
And because we can go with that and say, you know what, I'll pay you $7.25 and be a nanny with no benefits. I'm not obligated to give you health insurance. Utafanyaje?
Absolutely, yeah.
But again, and Brad, that mommy name wasn't it used during slavery on black women? That is a different context because that is
language.
Correct. That is
here in the
now
States.
That's switching.
It's a different meaning.
It's a different meaning. My friend, totally we're talking about francophone huko.
Yeah, I get where she's coming from, but yeah. So
yeah.
Then on YouTube, Afro Jamaican says he cannot wait to get to Kenya.
All right.
Yeah, I can't wait to get home to Kenya, is what he says. So I don't know when he's going home.
Wait, Afro, if you're going to be in Kenya, in Kilifi, December, let me know.
Did he give us a date?
No, he hasn't given us a date yet.
He hasn't given us a date. We might go there and find him waiting for us.
Oh, in Kilifi and a coconut tree eating a mango.
Yeah, we might find him waiting for us there.
Lord.
Yeah. Wow. So Brad, as we wrap up, what's your future looking like? What are your plans like in the next few months, in the next few years? What are you looking at?
So my biggest goal right now is to finish selling the next two phases of the projects that we have in Albury, and our hope is that we can really identify the next site for our development, the next set of business partners that we can continue to really help members of the diaspora, and basically we'll help anybody, even if you're not from the diaspora. If you see what I see, and you see the benefits of coming to Africa, and that's part of your plans, our hope is to just make the experience as smooth, as good as possible. And in my analysis, a lot of times I find people can retire 10 years earlier if they choose the West African route. And so if I can add 10 years to people's lives where they're playing golf, enjoying the beach, you know what, I'll call that a win. If that's what happens to be in the next couple of years, I'm going to be so excited. And I'm just looking forward to helping all those people move. So,
and how can people reach you? People who've been listening and they want to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So you just come to, you can either come to rohrsteam.com or rohrsteamafrica.com. You can follow me on social media, which is ROHRSTEAM on Instagram and TikTok. Message me. You can also call me. I'll give you my direct cell phone and WhatsApp. It's 443-876-2846. Text, call anytime. I'm here for you.
Okay, we're gonna put all those contacts on the comment section. One last parting shot. Anything that maybe you feel we did not cover.
Well, I would encourage everybody to become actively involved. If a lot of people who are sitting on the fence, I would encourage you to take a trip, to either to Kenya, to West Africa, whatever appeals to you, get out there and see it. And if you're from the business community, I would say the first thing to do is to get your network together. So we'll be talking about a lot of the Pan-African events, which I would tell you that these are very much business-focused events. They're informational, rich events. And when
Are those events here in the U.S. or in Africa?
We have events, a lot of events in Washington, D.C. We have events in New York City. And we actually are going to have the Full Circle Africa Economic Conference, December 27th. We'll be attending. It's going to be 27th to the 3rd of January in Ghana, where we're going to have. We just have like an amazing lineup. I'll be speaking there. We have Kevin Hart showing up. Alicia Keys.
Oh wow.
We have a whole bunch of really big time investors. Those are celebrities that you would know.
And this is in January.
This is going to be December 27th to January the 3rd in Accra, in Ghana.
Accra. Okay.
I'm looking here at some of the like Amy Jade and some of these other people who are like in the business world. They're the real celebrities to me, but they are going to have some really amazing kind of headlining people. But this is like an all-star lineup, and that is going to be the Full Circle Africa Economic Conference. That's going to be in Ghana, December 27th to January the 3rd. I'll have a very small role in that, and I'm honored to do that. But I would definitely suggest everyone check that out. If you're serious about business, this is one of those, get in a plane, get over there now. It's that good.
All right, thank you so much. And with that said, this is it for tonight. Brad, thank you so much for your time. And thank you to our amazing audience that has been here every week. And to the ones who are new today, make sure you follow us on all our social media handles and start watching the previous episodes. And remember to follow us at the OneMic Show on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Instagram. Mimi ni wenu Ali Badawi aka Mjukuu Masai. Back to you, Uno Mike.
Wahenga walinena kilicho na mwanzo hakina budi kuwa na mwisho. Meli imetia nanga. We are about to wrap this puppy up, and Mika Och left us, but it's all good. Mika Och, it's all good. Almost satisfied there. Tugende.
Thank you. At least I'm not the one who was pointed at with that long finger that looks like E.T. So Afro-Jamaican says here that he's going to be in Kenya in March. And he's going to be in Nairobi. He says Kilifi is his relaxation flex. So Afro-Jamaican, thank you very much. To all our regular listeners, Near Generational, we have some new people. Annette, what's up? I don't know if you're still on. Sir Steve,
My dad
is in here too.
Who is that? Oh, that's your dad.
Oh, that's your dad.
Oh, big shout out to dad.
Big shout out
that's
to
my dad.
That's Dad?
That's Dad, yeah.
Oh, hi, Dad. And Dad asked us a question. Is there an equivalent to property tax in West Africa, and how does it compare to the USA?
Yes, good question.
No property tax in most of West Africa. There are occasionally monthly fees for specific communities, but yes, you can actually own your property and the land without having to pay the government.
Wow. So, Sir Steve, did you hear son? Yes, he will be back home.
Dad, you did a great job.
Yes. And he's going to be probably, having
Mom
this
too.
spiel at
Don't
some
forget
time
Mommy.
next year about Kenya.
And mom too.
Yeah, so after he visits Kenya,
He'll be singing a different tune.
I think, yes.
Yes.
I think he'll be like, okay, West and East, let me merge the two. And I can see him singing this song.
Or like Aliu says, East, beast.
Yes. And to all our listeners, you guys need to continue staying tuned because we are winding up to the end of the year, and our shows are diminishing in count.
Start missing us now.
Yeah, you need to start practicing the missiology. Because when it hits, when is it? When it hits Thanksgiving?
The last episode is on December 1st.
It's December 1st?
December 1st, we're doing, like a wrap-up of the
So
whole
we are
year.
sure it's December 1st?
We are hoping. If it's not December 1st, it's going to be November 17th. We are hoping it's going to be December 1st.
That's just like 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, so we want to prepare people. We don't want you to get withdrawal symptoms. We want you to start getting ready.
So what's Afro-Jamaican going to do in terms between now and January 24th when we come back?
Well, but we'll have something in store for you. We'll have some. It's not going to be live, but we're gonna have something in store for you.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. I can see that. I can definitely see that. And so thank you to our listeners. Thank you to all our regular listeners. And Brad, thank you for
pleasure.
taking the time, driving through states and getting visas from. Where did you get it from? He got a visa in DC, and
Virginia,
he had to get another
DC,
one.
and then to Maryland.
Then he had to get another visa in Maryland to stay in Maryland. So yeah, it was quite a bit. We appreciate it, and for taking the time, being here with us all through for the 3 hours. It takes quite a toll, and
Three and a half. 3 and
yes, because
three quarters.
Yes,
Because he came early.
At 7:15.
He came in early. Yeah,
He came on,
Yes.
on white people time.
Wow. This show, if you guys are not censored with all of these things you're saying, I don't know.
They can't keep up with us. I think whoever was put in charge of us on in Google or on Facebook, I think they gave up on us. They're like,
Wow.
those guys, just leave them alone. They
Let
don't
them
mean
be.
harm. Yeah.
Yeah, if I was the censor, I would have censored the whole show. But anyway, I'm not. So that's why you guys are going to come back and listen to us next week and have a good week. Rugby World Cup is on, like we said, tomorrow. Wow. It's a huge game. This is like, I don't think it gets huger than this.
What's your prediction?
I'm going with, I think, what they consider the underdog, the defending champs.
Okay.
All Blacks?
No,
Oh, sorry, the Box.
Yes.
Yeah, the Box.
South Africa.
No, but I think to me, I feel like the All Blacks were the ones who people were not expecting much from this particular tournament.
Correct. But if you look at the history of, and then you look at the way they've played through this tournament, they automatically become the favorite. And everybody's kind of like, they kind of snuck it in, especially because of the last game, and you look at the score. But they've been working hard.
They have.
And
They
But
have.
even All Blacks, they newest.
Yeah,
Let's agree against Ireland.
against
But
Ireland,
remember,
yeah.
that's the only game that they went down.
That's the only
And-
game they struggled.
And after that, it was uphill. It was,
The
yes.
first one they struggled is when they got beat by France.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, but with
Yeah.
Ireland, I mean, even though it's still,
But Ireland came
correct.
wange
And-
madhogo than you.
An Ireland 15th team is not a joke.
It's
No,
not
it's
a
not.
joke.
It is not a
I
joke.
actually felt that they were going to win the World Cup. That was my feeling,
For Ireland?
until,
wow.
until they lost to the All Blacks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
So with all of that, we have, various viewing parties all over the place. Should we even have correspondents and people who are in Kenya, who are doing things? I mean, there's stuff that's happening all over. Bora is represented everywhere. Is there a place that Bora is not represented? Folks,
All over.
enjoy your family, enjoy your loved ones, or enjoy the weather. We have, is this called an Indian summer? Is that what this
I
is?
think so.
Because it's going to be like 82 degrees
It's
tomorrow.
gonna be 8 is mine.
But I think I'm going to be in shorts. I'm even going to have to look for a halter top. But with that said, see you guys next week.
No comment.
All right. Brad, give us your last comment.
And please, no halter top comments.
I would say, guys, thank you very much for tuning in, listening to us. I really appreciate all the work that you guys are doing here to push out accurate information on Africa. I'm not someone who needs all the positive stuff. You don't need to blow sunshine on me, but I appreciate that the content you're coming out there is accurate, it's pertinent, and it's stuff that you really can't get from any of the mainstream corporate media. So great work, and I'll continue to keep watching the show. I think you have amazing content.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to appreciate, all the listeners. I want to thank you, Brad, so much for taking your time and coming through. We are going to make an appointment to do this when you're out in Ghana or when you're out in the Ivory Coast.
It'll be my pleasure.
Yes, so we're going to make plans for that. And we're also going to talk to Ted Josiah of Joka Jock and see, what we can do about this new accidental found partnership. So that will be good. And I want to appreciate all the listeners. I was a bit sick today, but we're able to make it through. I mean, these guys are always, even when I'm sick, these two guys, they're always trying to be unkind to me. But it's okay. I know where I'll get them. So it's all right. Na kwa hayo machache, yeyote ambaye anataka kunipigia simu, nambari yangu bado ni ile 1-800 mteule. Na operator akishika simu, namwambia unataka kusema na mjukuu. Na akikuuliza ni mjukuu yupi, mkumbushe ni mjukuu yule yule wa Masai, because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui na sibagui. Kwaherini.
Gary Wainaina, meli imeng'oa nanga, si imetia shokali. Correction. And this is from our Swahili teacher over here, who says that, that we always attack him, but he's always the first to attack. And then when we respond, he cries wolf. But meli imetia nanga because we have arrived at our destination. We are dropping anchor.
Yes.
Omenyi ogwo.
There you go.
And Washeke, here in Texas, we are looking for coats. It will be 30s on Monday. My dear, it's cuffing season, baby. Get yourself together. Aiden, daddy loves you. Jerry, daddy loves you. Nemo, daddy loves you. Until next week, be blessed. Since we don't have music from DJ Mosh, it is what it is.
Umewa YouTube.
I'm about to.
Excellent.